much, guys. We did it.
It's crunch time in the IndyCar Championship. 4 to go, including this 500-mile race today. Welcome to the ABC Supply 500 from Pocono Raceway. We are nearly ready to get going today. So many storylines we've covered, and the final practice yesterday, Paul Tracy and Townsend Bell. Mike, tell us a little bit about what we can expect in this race.
Well, what I love is every driver I've talked to said they're not happy with their car. It's going to be a handful all day with the wind and the sun. That's why you shouldn't leave your couch for the next 3 hours.
Well, it was a Penske Ganassi show yesterday in final practice, but watch out for these guys at Andretti.
Words in motorsports, here to give the command, please welcome Giovanni Petroli, managing partner of ABC Supply.
Drivers, start your engines!
As the drivers are getting ready for 500 miles, the mindset is to make sure you get into a rhythm. But the mindset in 500 miles here on pit road is different. For the crews, they know that 500 miles means at least 6 pit stops. And many of these crew members are thinking, please, don't let it be me who makes a mistake here, because 1 second lost on pit road equals over a football field out on the racetrack. Katie?
Charlie Kimball started on the pole for the last super speedway, but never had a chance to prove himself in the race due to mechanical issues, and that's pretty much been the story of his entire season. Today, he's starting third and needs a smooth race to prove himself. Meanwhile, his teammate Tony Kanaan is starting alongside him. He was the most hated man in the paddock following the race in Texas, but I think he's going to be really aggressive again today as he goes for his first win in 3 years. Anders?
Yeah, Katie, I think the biggest storyline are the guys that just drove by me here, Graham Rahal and Gabby Chavez. Graham Rahal going for his first win ever here at Pocono Raceway, never done that before, and then Gabby Chavez has been so impressive this year with Harding Racing. They finished 9th at the Indy 500, then 5th at Texas Motor Speedway. What can they do here, Robin?
A long time ago, only 4 or 5 years ago, Ed Carpenter was the man to beat on ovals. Everybody said it. It didn't matter that he was just an oval track specialist. He was the guy to beat. Well, he hadn't won a race since 2014. He led 5 laps at Indy this year. He started second. He's still got the speed, but it's been a long time since he's had a good result. He's only had 1 top 10 this year. It's really tough for a guy that's a car owner and a driver to separate himself on race day, and especially a place like this with a tricky triangle. He crashed yesterday. He starts last today. But guess what? Ryan Hunter-Reay went from 22nd to first last year, and Ed Carpenter is somebody to watch today because he will be moving forward. Kevin?
And Robin, there are some legit contenders from the back. And when we talk about Pocono Raceway, you've been here just about every year, dating back to 1971. This track was built for IndyCar, Townsend, and as I mentioned, I think it's maybe the most unique oval, if you call it that we have.
For sure. It starts in turn 1. Remember, Roger Ward designed this place. There's Mario Andretti. Roger Ward said, I want to build my dream racetrack. He took turn 1 from Trenton, New Jersey, modeled that here at Pocono. Turn 2, just like the Indy 500, one of those 4 90-degree corners, as we see Takuma Sato working it through at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And then turn 3, this was modeled after Milwaukee, the famous Milwaukee Mile. And that takes you back to the front straightaway with 6 degrees of banking. Now, let's talk about the front straightaway here at Pocono, because it's longer than anything else on the oval racing schedule. This thing stretches a full 3,740 feet. Indianapolis, 3,300 feet. And then this is what's really cool. 90 feet wide at Pocono, and this is what it can do for you. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to say almost 8 cars wide, and it gets crazy as we ride on board with the madmen of IndyCar all charging for the lead going into turn 1. I love this place.
Well, let's find out how they're going to line up, and talent is spread throughout, Paul.
Well, the guy of the moment, Takuma Sato, the Indy 500 winner, laid it down yesterday, but watch out for Pagano, last year's series champion.
Looking back at road 2, Charlie Kimball with a nice qualifying run. His teammate Tony Kanaan will start outside.
Will Power, last year's winner here. He felt his car was really good. And another guy who could be a factor today, he's an Indy specialist, another Indy 500 winner, Alexander Rossi.
Behind those two on row 4, Graham Rahal, championship contender. And how about a big shout out for Gabby Chavez with that Harding Racing team, making a couple of entries to the IndyCar Championship this season with a great qualifying spot.
Multi-time champion Scott Dixon, the guy you can never count out, and his teammate Max Chilton. He led laps at Indy 500, so he's looking for a good day today.
Now we start the back half of the field. All these drivers will be looking for a big charge on the start. Ed Jones, the rookie. James Hinchcliffe will start outside row 6.
Esteban Gutierrez and Joseph Newgarden, our championship leader. How is this guy back here? But watch out, he'll be moving forward.
And moving back to row 8, Sebastian Saavedra replacing Mikhail Aloshin in the Schmidt-Peterson car. And then local hero Marco Andretti going to look for something big today.
The two AJ Foyt cars on the same row on row 9, Connor Daly and Carlos Munoz.
And behind those two, this is J.R. Hildebrand, and he really struggled to get the balance right in qualifying. And then Castro Neves with that big crash in turn 1. He'll be starting from the back along with these two.
Ryan Hunter-Reay injured today, but the guy is ready to race, and Ed Carpenter. Both of these guys are going to be moving forward.
Well, we have 6 excellent looks riding on board with Sebastian Saavedra, who has the Aero on board, starting from the 15th position, confirmed for this race and next weekend at Gateway for SPM. Joseph Newgarden is the championship leader, but as mentioned, starts further back when he would like. The Verizon on board. James Hinchcliffe has the Lucas Oil look, starting in the 12th position. Graham Rahal has the Bobby Rahal Automotive Group on board today, starting 7th, still in the championship fight in 6th. And we want to watch Tony Kanaan at the start of this race, but he's got a good starting position in 4th, trying to get his first win in 3 years. And the pole sitter has the Verizon streaming on board. Takuma Sato. Go inside IndyCar all season. Download IndyCar mobile from Verizon. Boys, how good is this one going to be?
I think it's going to be sensational, and watch for everybody to adjust their cars as fast as they can from the get-go to try to get the balance in the window.
Really, really fast guys at the back, and some guys at the front that could be questionable. There's going to be comers and goers.
We're into the final 4 of the 2017 Verizon IndyCar Series Championship. 7 are still in the chase for the title. 500 miles from the tricky triangle. Here we go from Pocono. It's green.
And they're 5 wide already, Townsend. Look at this.
I'm going to say that's 7, Paul. It's crazy already. It's only 3 deep.
Oh, cars moving around. Rahal moved over onto Kanaan, pushed him out, but
Sato gets through in front throw. He's in one of the many blue and white cars. Takuma Sato leads. Tony Kanaan has jumped through to 2nd, and they're still jockeying for position mid-pack.
Well, I'm amazed we got through that first corner. They were fanned out 8, 9 wide, so they're still 3 wide.
This is where it gets tricky. Wow, look at that, 3 wide through turn 2, the kink.
Newgarden on the move, just went by one of the Ganassi cars. I think it was Dixon. So Dixon struggling. Castro Neves up 10 positions. Is that even real?
I guess so. He probably followed Newgarden, or maybe it was the other way around.
Elio from 20th to 10th in 1 lap. Look at Scott Dixon back there. He's going to the inside, side by side with Castro Neves.
Ooh, Castro Neves had to check up big time. He got up into that light gray area of the track. Not much grip up there early. He's just back to life now, finding the momentum, and here comes Ryan Hunter-Reay.
That's where he lost it last year, Castro Neves. He got up a little bit high, and that car got away, and he crashed out early as Ryan Hunter-Reay backs out of that. He's being careful right now. He's got to get his legs under him.
That didn't look super careful to me, Paul. Here he comes, looking up the inside of 3. He said it'd take 15 laps to get his confidence back. Try 1.5.
Heavy crash in qualifying yesterday. He did get a lap just to simply check the systems today, but really back in the car for the first time, and Hunter-Reay trying to be on the move for the 2nd year in a row from the back.
Tony Kanaan, or Gabby Chavez down on the inside there. He's lost a bunch of positions. He was holding off that Foyt car. As that Foyt car goes around the outside, he's lost 7 positions in 1 lap.
Talked to the Harding guys earlier. What they like about Gabby Chavez is he doesn't get too ruffled. He doesn't drive out himself. Look at this.
Didn't I say that guy was coming forward? There's your Indy 500 champion. Goes past his teammate, the other Indy 500 champion.
And remember, it was Alexander Rossi yesterday in qualifying who lead into Takuma Sato's car to give him tips on qualifying. So Rossi taking authority, taking the position.
So look at Kanaan scooting away while we watch the action in the field. Tony Kanaan went to the front. Split screen on board with James Hinchcliffe and Joseph Newgarden. And Kanaan has now led all 5 races here. And he's led every super speedway race since the DW12 was introduced in 2012.
Will Power's got a little run here on Sato. He was pretty up close there coming off turn 2. Let's see if he can keep tight here and get a nice draft down the front straightaway.
Power in the silver and orange Verizon car.
He's got a good run. Can he get there?
That's Sato in front of him. We're on board with Sato, and Power makes the move. He gets to 3rd.
And this is one of the things that Takuma Sato was somewhat concerned about. Obviously, fast pole position in qualifying that says, I think we have a bit too much downforce. You can see that Charlie Kimball towing up from behind because of that downforce. This they can change in the pit stop, but right now, Sato going backwards, too heavy on the car.
And the problem for Sato is each position he loses, he also loses momentum at the corner exit, and it's a snowball effect. It's really hard to maintain position when you're getting past like that late into the corner.
Newgarden on board here. He is up to 7th, so he's come from the back of the field and passed a ton of cars, so he's made a lot of go. Castro Neves has faded back a couple positions now.
Castro Neves up 9 from the start, Newgarden up 7, and Ryan Hunter-Reay up 5.
Watch Scott Dixon there trying to make move to the inside of Max Chilton, as Newgarden further ahead is going to get another spot and go to the inside of Takuma Sato. That's Newgarden in the black and green car this weekend.
I'm surprised that Chilton didn't give that position to his teammate, but he makes a move. Sato's going backwards here.
Late move into turn 3 on Sato does Chilton. That's going to kill Sato's momentum, and now Scott Dixon will have a run down the front straightaway.
I wonder if Sato's running a lighter downforce setup, and now that he's faded back into the traffic. Look at these guys, 3-4 wide here. So I wonder if Sato's got a lighter downforce setup, and he's just struggling now that he's lost positions.
There went Scott Dixon, beat by Takuma Sato. And these are the 2 coin cars sorting themselves out with Castro Neves and Hinchcliffe.
There's Hunter-Reay at the back of that train. Carlos Munoz in the ABC supply car going to the inside of one of the coin cars.
Something wrong with Castro Neves. Look at that, he lost 3 positions.
Wow.
Down the straightaway.
Esteban Gutierrez, for a guy who has next to no oval experience, he just charged through the middle like it was a Formula 1 start.
So Castro Neves now is faded back to 13th. He lost 3 positions coming off 1 corner. So you must have some handling issues going on.
Hunter-Reay back there in the bright yellow DHL car. We're watching him trying to make his way forward. He's moved up 6 spots. On board with James Hinchcliffe, who is running in the 11th position.
We just talked about the guy with no experience. Look at this white car back here racing Gutierrez with Hinchcliffe and Rahal. This guy's never seen this place. This is his 2nd oval, and he's up racing with the top dogs.
Sato, the pole sitter, has fallen back to 9th now and is in danger of losing more positions. Jean-Graham Rahal is challenging him now.
Yes, he is. And Paul, you asked the question. I wonder if it's downforce. I just checked with the team. They said Sato is not happy in turn 1 and turn 3. He's having to lift. So yes, he's a little heavy on downforce, but right now it doesn't have the grip in the corners. That's why he's losing momentum.
Now, all of that said, this is a 500-mile race with probably 6 pit stops. There's reason for optimism. How much can you change your car and make it better as we go through?
Well, if you're not happy in 2/3 of the track, I guess it's 33% happiness for Sato, but he's hanging on right now. And here comes Graham Rahal. These 4 or 5 cars are just going to chew up Sato here if Graham gets by, and he does.
So Rahal gets him. Hinchcliffe will be the next to get him to move up in the top 10. And up front there, that's Tony Kanaan. He took the lead by the end of lap 1, has led every lap here. 500 miles at Pocono. You're watching NBCSN's coverage of IndyCar, brought to you by United Rentals, official equipment rental services provider of IndyCar and proud sponsor of Graham Rahal. And by TireRack.com. Find, deliver, install smarter Tire Rack. Future racers as young as 5 years old up to about 15-year-olds. Quarter midgets here just outside the track in the parking lot. We went over to watch for a little while yesterday.
Yeah, we went over. I had a friend from Vegas in town, came all the way across country to race, and those little kids are getting after it. They want to be IndyCar drivers, but look at this. Kanan right here. We got a new leader in Rossi, but Kanan is fighting his way back.
You saw it in nonstop with Alexander Rossi taking the lead on lap 12 on Tony Kanan, Katie.
We just saw him take over the number 10 car, and just before he climbed in, he told me he feels like today is his best chance to win all season. That's because he feels like he has the exact same car as he did last year. That meant he could lead when he wanted to, he could follow when he wanted to, and it just so happened to be the exact same car that Ryan Hunter-Reay was running, and we saw him work his way up through the field twice. Anders?
Katie, Tony Kanan is super happy with his car. I spoke to him before the race. He said we're just making minor tweaks to it. But here's a crazy fact for you. Tony Kanan has won at so many crazy super speedways around this planet of ours, and somehow has only finished 9th here at Pocono Raceway. He wants to change that today. He needs a win. Jan?
And for Will Power, who runs right behind those front two, he's very happy with his car. He likes where he is, but he has radioed, I have a little bit of push. That's not uncommon. When you're third car in line, you lose some air. That's obviously something that can easily be fixed at Will Power's first pit stop.
And up front, Alexander Rossi in the lead, and he has now led every 500-mile race he started. That's not many, but it's all 4.
Well, what we got here is an 11-car train, and Castro Neves is kind of falling off of this lead pack draft. So these 11 cars are running pretty good speeds. Let's ride.
A lot of reports of understeer out there.
That was Graham Rahal's strategist saying a lot of guys talking about understeer. So look for some changes. Look at the buffeting on this IndyCar, this helmet cam here. Graham Rahal's hand's pretty smooth. Doesn't look like he's got a lot of understeer, Townsend.
Well, you have to be smooth. You have to respect the dirty air in front of you, in that if you get a little high, all of a sudden you can pick up clean air, and you can't put too much wheel into it if you're understeering, or else it'll bite you at the corner exit.
You heard the radio communication saying a lot of people are struggling with understeer. That's because prior, Graham Rahal was saying, I have massive understeer. So that's a bit of his strategist, Rico Nault, kind of giving him some encouragement, saying, you're not the only one. We'll get this thing going. And now he's got a good draft going.
A nice little run coming off the corner. He was pretty far back, but I think it's a little late to slide it in on Newgarden there.
He got onto the limiter just as he popped out. I couldn't tell if that was in 6th gear or 5th gear. He might be running out of gearing in the toe.
Back up front now with the leader, Alexander Rossi. Kanan, Power, Kimball, Pagenaud the top 5. Dixon is 6th.
Kanan just got a nice
7th.
Kanan just got a nice run there. I don't think he's going to try to slide in turn 3, but he sure is staying close. He might be just content right now to just make some fuel mileage, considering he led the first 12, 13 laps.
I think the same can be said for Will Power, who runs behind this guy, Tony Kanan. Let's listen here on the throttle.
Copy. Another great lap.
That's Chip Ganassi talking to Kanan.
Just listening to the breathe, and I think you're right, Paul. I think Kanan's just going to want to get the better fuel mileage that'll come from sitting in the draft here. See if he pedals it as he drafts up on Alexander Rossi. Yeah, a little bit there, a little breathe. So that's a guy that's just saving the fuel. That'll either allow you to run a lap longer or take less fuel on the pit stop if you pit at the same lap as Rossi. But remember, Kanan started out leading, so they're probably at about the same fuel level remaining.
So Power has been the one that has been riding in traffic the entire time of those up front. This is 1 lap ago. This is when Rahal nearly got Joseph Newgarden. Oh, and he did get him. So this was not what we saw. So this was just a lap ago. So Rahal did get that position, and Newgarden has fallen back to 10th position. Rahal up to 8th.
Right now, we got a little bit of a Honda parade. We've got only 3 Chevys, and they're the Penske's that are in the top 10. So the top 10 positions, it's mostly Hondas and 3 Chevys.
You know, looking at the Penske, specifically Simon Pagenaud and Will Power, the front wing vibrates like crazy. I don't know if that's the Chevy body kit, but the Honda totally stable. but you see a big vibration, a big flutter, and I wonder if the drivers are feeling any of that back into the steering wheel. There you see it there. That's a great shot. It almost looks like a broken wing, but it's not. Will Power, his teammate, the exact same effect.
It's almost the opposite of what we talked about a couple years ago last year, where we were talking about the Hondas, always the wings were flapping around and moving all over. But look at that wing right there, flapping up and down. So you don't see that from the Honda cars anymore. Now the Chevys have got it.
And let's just look at a Honda, maybe of Rossi up front. We zoom in, there's Graham Rahal, nice and stable, no vibration, just a little bit. And note that the end fence on the Honda much, much smaller than the Chevy. When you have that big end fence out there, it's a lot of leverage on the front wing main plane. So just a subtle thing, but we've talked.
Yes, it will.
We talked coming into this race about the advantage Honda has on the super speedways.
Gutierrez has a problem. He just pulled to the inside. He was running inside the top 10. He's 11th now, but he pulled down low. Looks like he might have a problem.
There is Gutierrez. You saw it, Paul.
Yeah, he pulled down to the inside. I don't know if he got a broken back wing. He's definitely
Really
way off the pace now.
Broken. The rear wheel guard is broken, and we need to check the suspension.
I can see that rear wing back here is broken in that back corner.
Oh, yeah.
I could see the wing flapping around. See it fall down right there?
That's the voice of Craig Hampson, his race engineer, saying we need to check the car. So not sure if there was contact, if he got up high into the wall. If they said they need to check the suspension as well, perhaps Gutierrez had contact. Yellow's out.
And I did see a little piece flying a couple of laps ago.
There.
It was to the inside.
He definitely
the
rubbed the
damage.
wall. You can see on the side right there, it's scraped. So he has white walled the wall and damaged that rear corner of that bumper.
So under caution for the first time, lap 23 of 200. And let's see if we can see Esteban Gutierrez in his first super speedway race.
Just got a little bit high, a nice little run on Newgarden and got high in the gray and just barely touched the wall. So slight damage. The good thing here is that it takes so long to get around under yellow. He won't lose a lap, and he's got a pretty good car, so he can come back through.
So pits would have been closed as soon as the yellow came out.
You should be pitting now.
Yeah, they told him to stay out, so they're going to pit now when it's open. But this takes a while to get around under yellow. So
I think there'll be a lot of work to be done on that car. And, you know, that's a great example of a situation in oval racing, super speedway racing. You can't teach that by watching video. You can talk to the driver about the possibility, but you just have to, you almost have to make the mistake for the first time to learn it. Every driver in this field has done that at least once.
So we're in the fuel window. They can go somewhere between 28 to 32 laps. Plus you had the pace laps. We see some debris flying there on track. So I would think we're going to see everybody take this chance, come in here. The pits are now open.
We are done. All right, just stay in there, Esteban, while they take a look at him, but we have a vent right here.
That's Craig Hampson. It sounds like that they are done. So he's going to stay in the car for a moment. I believe that's what he said, but we'll take a watch on that. He's going to stay in the car, though, because of the traffic that we're going to see in just a moment on pit lane, I believe. Alexander Rossi likely leading them down the field. Sarah Fisher in the pace car. It's Rossi, Kanaan, Power, Kimball, and Dixon, and here they come.
And it's been smooth sailing so far for Tony Kanaan. He said to the team, no changes, please. I'm loving my car at the moment. They just need to execute a perfect stop here, 4 new tires, and they'll be on their way. Katie?
And Alexander Rossi can put this car absolutely anywhere he wants. He can lead, he can follow the team, ask for changes. He said nothing. It's perfect, Jan.
Will Power had a big lockup, and they're going for a quarter turn only, a front wing. There goes Rossi, but it looks like Will Power may pick up a position here with a good stop.
He got one up to second. Rossi just barely beats Power out. So it's Rossi, Power, 1-2 coming out, then Kanaan. Here's the look again at the line. Alexander Rossi maintains the lead through the pit stops. Then we're going to see Will Power come through. Tony Kanaan is next.
Dixon came right after, so Dixon had a really good stop. There's Dixon.
So we'll have a restart coming up in just a moment. Everyone chasing the 2016 Indianapolis 500 winner, American Alexander Rossi. We're off and running at Pocono Raceway for the Indy Pocono 500. Our first caution. Esteban Gutierrez slapped the wall, and we've also had our first round of pit stops. Alexander Rossi came out in front with Will Power and Tony Kanaan. And look at Ryan Hunter-Reay. Heavy crash yesterday, and he's already worked his way up to 7th thanks to a lightning pit stop and great teamwork here, guys.
Watching the 28 crew there in yellow, right in the middle of the screen, and it seems like these guys just get jacked up for a challenge. They worked so hard to get Ryan Hunter-Reay's backup car built up, and look how he delivers here. Whoa! 4, 5, 6 crosses the line and picks up a bunch of positions. Great job.
And that's the advantage of this very wide pit lane. He got out and went all the way to the outside to clear himself. Meanwhile, we mentioned the cause for the caution. Katie is with Esteban Gutierrez.
And he said he was going to use this very first speedway race as a learning curve, but you were pretty racy out there, Esteban. But what happened when you made contact with the wall?
Yeah, it was really, really fun. Good racing out there, but yeah, I mean, as you said, I mean, this is all experience. Unfortunately, at that point, I was going very strong. I came into turn 3. It was pretty. I had a lot of space to the guys in front, but they started to drop in the middle of the corner. And as I started to catch them, I started to have massive understeer, and I couldn't save it. And I just tried to reduce the impact, and that's all I could do. I did my best.
Now we were back under green with Alexander Rossi leading. Kevin?
But look at Tony Kanaan come to the outside. 3 wide coming into turn number 1. Rossi on the bottom, Power in the middle, and Kanaan from 3rd to 1st for the lead.
Tony Kanaan is really strong today. You just get the feeling he will not be denied on that restart. He wanted it, Paul.
Big run by Kanaan, but look at Hinchcliffe. He made a move down the inside of Graham Rahal, 3 wide. That's a tough one to pull off on cold tires, and look at him sawing at that wheel.
Also of note, 2 that were contending early from Ganassi, Max Chilton and Charlie Kimball, had issues. They were running in the top 6. They're at the back. We'll get to their story coming up in a moment, but the racing up front is fierce right now.
Well, you've heard the term liquid courage. This is rubber courage, fresh tires for all these guys, and that allows you to take big, bold moves on parts of the racetrack you just can't use on old tires. And look at this, Rossi coming back on Hinch.
Coming back on Hinch. Hinch made a really big restart, but these guys, these guys are getting tight. Looks like Texas all over again.
Oh boy. Hinchcliffe not giving it up.
Some momentum from the high side.
Look at Rahal coming now. He's going to have a chance at Rossi from behind.
Oh, he's going to pop out here and make a move.
Rahal in the red car.
Rossi protects. That's a tight pass to pull off. He protected, faded the inside, but Rahal slides it through. Rossi going backwards.
The white and black car behind there is Simon Pagenaud, last year's champion, running in 7th. He's one of the 4 within 17 points of each other in the championship. And here's Joseph Newgart right behind his teammate running in 8th.
Making a front bar adjustment. Newgarden softening up the roll rate on the front of the car. Helps get a little bit of grip in the turbulent air.
Tell you, the guy we haven't talked about is the guy right here challenging for the lead, Dixon, to the lead. He came out in 4th. Now he's the leader. Kanaan pulls over and lets him go by. So that's that team tactic we've been talking about, Penske versus Ganassi.
And look at Hinchcliffe to the inside of Power for 3rd place.
Wow. Very late into turn 2. That's going to allow Graham Rahal to make a move on Power. Power now under attack.
Oh, he tucked it in there tight. I don't know if his spotter told him he was clear, but Rossi gets a big draft down the front straightaway.
This is a 500-mile race.
I'll tell you what, if somebody jams you up in turn 3, you are just a sitting duck down this long front straightaway at Pocono. Now, Hunter-Reay and his teammate Marco Andretti. Marco Andretti, he was at the back of the pack on the first stint. Now he's right at the front.
Told you guys on the pre-race, these guys are going to be frantic all day. These guys are racing like it's the last stint of a 500-mile race.
Marco also picked up about 6 spots on that pit stop. There's J.R. Hildebrand, the green Fuzzy's car going to the inside of Ryan Hunter-Reay. Meanwhile, up front, it's still Scott Dixon leading his teammate, Tony Kanaan.
No stage racing needed here in IndyCar. Look at these guys fanned out 220 miles an hour.
All 4 of the Ganassi cars are hooked up, but 2 of them are in the back now. Charlie Kimball and Max Chilton after they made extra stops during that yellow flag sequence. Here's our pole sitter, Takuma Sato, who now runs back in 17th position.
Will Power He was solid at the beginning of the race, just sitting in third place. He is hanging on right now as Simon Pagenaud goes by.
Throwing the block. Will Power is on Pagenaud, forcing Pagenaud around the outside. That's a smart move from Will Power. That allows you to not get checked up at the exit of the corner by forcing the faster car to make the more difficult and longer pass around the outside. Here comes Rossi on Rahal.
You can hear Rossi Graham Rahal having to breathe that car through the corner as we see Newgarden turns the trim switch and gets a run on him because he was pedaling it through 1 and 2.
There have been over 185 on-track passes for position already. Newgarden getting another. Hinchcliffe now challenging Kanaan for second, and he's going to get it.
These Schmidt cars were mega fast last year. Michaela Lotion led a long part of this race, so that they've got their setup figured out.
We've seen Will Power start to drop back, so I sprinted down to Penske to find out. We see that Rossi making the move to the inside. Close quarters out on the racetrack, and that's what happened to Will Power. He lost some momentum in turn number 3. They say he has not been on the radio to be able to complain of any issues mechanically, but wow, it's frantic out there.
Look at the penalty to Rossi for that late move on Tony Kanaan. And remember the history this year between Kanaan and Rossi. There was the crash at Texas, the crash at Road America. Rossi, the crash at Texas, Kanaan, the crash at Road America, and these two drivers don't give each other an inch on the racetrack. That was close.
So it's all about momentum. It's all about momentum here. If you get the doors shut on you and you get bogged down, you're going to get passed by 3 or 4 guys before you can recover.
The super speedway racing in IndyCar continues to be tremendous as Rossi gets back by Rahal. And let's watch this sequence from just a moment ago.
So that's Rossi making a very late move, I think too late to try to make a move on Tony Kanaan. He realized it, checked up to avoid contact, and then he paid the price for it down the back straight. Lost 2 positions with Newgarden and Rahal getting around.
He's got one of them back now. That's Rossi in the red, white, and blue car. Newgarden in the black and green car with Fitzgerald Glider Kits as the sponsor this weekend, is right in front of him, running in 4th. He's the championship leader and has won the last 2 races.
Right now, as the points sit the way they're running, Scott Dixon is back in the points lead by 11 points over Newgarden. So every time there's a position changed, the results are changing of where it's going to be at the end of the year.
So guys, these are the points as they run right now. How about that? Dixon would reclaim the championship in the order they run on track at the moment. Pagenaud 4th, Castroneves is 3rd, Newgarden 11 points behind. And I'm told 196 passes on track have already taken place. We're not even a quarter of the way through this race.
We're 36 laps into a 200 lapper, so long way to go. There's going to be 1,000 passes in this race.
And I think there's a bit of a grudge scorecard that's developing, right? There's guys stuffing each other late in the corner. That's going to come back on a lot of these drivers when it really counts in the last 10 or 15 laps of this race.
1 and 3 Ganassi right now. Note that those cars are almost identical. NTT data kind of takes us back to the Target years. They have added since the weekend started. A little bit of orange on the nose of Dixon's car. There's orange on the camera mount that you can distinguish them just a little bit. So Ganassi is in front right now, 1st and 3rd. And let's go back to 2013, the first time IndyCar was here since 1989. That's Charlie Kimball. Scott Dixon going by him, and it was a 1-2-3 for Ganassi with Scott Dixon on the top step of the podium, and he leads today's 500-mile race at Pocono. Welcome back to the ABC Supply 500 on NBCSN from Pocono Raceway with Paul Tracy, Townsend Bell, Katie Hargett, Jan Beekes, Anders Krohn, and Robin Miller. I'm Kevin Lee. Let's check out the Firestone biggest movers. You see Scott Dixon up at the front, leading James Hinchcliffe. Tony Kanaan is in third. But look at all these jumpers, including Ryan Hunter-Reay.
Got some Tigers out there today, Paul. I mean, when's the last time you saw 5 guys move up 8 positions or more from the start? That's huge.
Yeah, a lot of action on track. Guys coming and going, but Andretti was running at the back in the first stint. He's recovered nicely, so he must have made some type of setup change and a really good pit stop. So currently running 8th.
By the way, just like that, 3 laps ago, we passed 100 miles already. Did not take long.
There's a good shot of Marco Andretti. Local hero, lives just down the road in Nazareth, and Alexander Rossi makes a move on Newgarden there. And remember, in the first stint, guys, the second half of that first stint, it was Alexander Rossi who was the strongest car on the track. So I think it just needs to be patient, and it's going to come to Rossi on each of these stints.
Graham Rahal going to the inside of Newgarden. He'll get that position. That's 5th. So I love watching these events. Townsend, you've had great success in Indianapolis on super speedways. PT, of course, you have as well. What do you guys think of driving them? Do you enjoy them?
Well, it's all about just timing and placing your car in the right spot on the track and really just setting up your pass, because like Rossi, if you dive it in too late and get your nose chopped off and kill your momentum, you're going to lose 2 or 3 spots. You're trying to make 1 and you'll lose 2 or 3.
And I think the experience that Alexander Rossi is gaining in his first 2 years in IndyCar is invaluable in understanding that you don't have to race too hard. Nobody's going to walk away from you in this race. The important thing is stay there in the top 5, tune your car, and get ready to make a charge to win it at the end.
Well, right now, the way it's shaking out, look, Dixon has gotten himself in the lead. That's where he wants to be because he wants to win this championship. But I think Hinchcliffe probably has one of the faster cars on track, but he's content right now to just sit there in Dixon's draft. I think from Kanaan, Rossi, you see these guys right here? These guys are all jockeying around trying to get up further up in that line.
Yeah, but look at Alexander Rossi coming off turn 3 with a big run on Tony Kanaan. So these 2 guys, remember what happened just a few laps ago. Here comes Rossi. What does he do?
He whips it out. He's going to go through. Kanaan lifts off, lets him go. So those 2 guys are playing fair with each other.
So that's for 3rd position. So it's Dixon, Hinchcliffe, and now Rossi. Kanaan back there in the blue and white car, one of them in 4th. Newgarden, black and green behind him in 5th. And it's Rahal, Pagenaud, Power, Andretti, Hunter-Reay, Elio Castroneves, 11th. Remember, he picked up 10 on the opening lap. He's kind of stalled there, running in 11th position right now. Let's check in with Jan.
Scott Dixon on the radio with Mike Hull. You just had a conversation about whether Scott wants to lead or not and whether you want him to drop back. Are you happy leading?
Well, I think at this point we got 4 races to go and points are important. So, you know what, at best, if we sit out front and don't make the mileage the guys behind do, it's 1 lap short. And, you know, unlike Indianapolis where you lose over 40 seconds in the pit lane, you only lose 30 seconds here. So you don't go down a lap by coming in that lap early. So it's probably worth it.
All right, again, what he's talking about is that by Scott Dixon staying out front, he will have to stop potentially a lap earlier, but they think it's safer keeping him out of trouble and maintaining momentum.
Well, it's much safer to be sitting out front because from 3rd, 4th, 5th back, these guys are all jockeying around positions and running each other hard.
Key word from Mike Hull, probably.
Well, that's what I like to hear, though. I want to lead. They're going after it, and we're just about a quarter of the way through. Dixon, Hinchcliffe, and Rossi at Pocono. Watch every IndyCar and NBC race online, on tablet, and connected TV devices with the NBC Sports app. You can watch us anywhere. Download the app or find out more at NBCSports.com. Over a quarter of the way through a 500-mile race. The last of the season, the last super speedway for IndyCar, and only 4 to go, and it's been good. Scott Dixon leading Alexander Rossi, and here is Joseph Newgarden going to third around James Hinchcliffe. And look at Rossi thinking about challenging Dixon for the lead now.
I don't think anybody is as strong as Alexander Rossi in this race, especially the second half of the tire stint. Rossi seems to be able to follow closer than just about anybody in traffic.
It's been nearly radio silence all day for Alexander Rossi. On the first stop, he said it's perfect, no changes. The team asked him just now if he wanted any changes. You see Hinchcliffe get around Rossi there, but on the second stop, they asked if he wanted any more changes, and he said a teeny tiny bit of front wing to help with turn 3. T-Bell, what would you do?
I would leave it exactly as it is right now. The tricky triangle is so sensitive on setup, and look at Rossi. He's making runs here that nobody can do at this point in the tire run, and he might have a shot, Paul, on the front straight.
Well, we're going to see these guys pit within the next 2 or 3 laps, and the first guy to come is going to be your leader, Scott Dixon. We know that. We know from his team manager said, look, it's costing us some fuel, so we're going to have to come in a lap earlier than these guys, but it's not really that big of a detriment here on this big of a track.
Rossi has won 1 race. It was the biggest race in the world, last year's Indianapolis 500, but the guy he's chasing, 4th all-time, only AJ, Mario, and Michael, and if he wins today, Scott Dixon would tie Michael Andretti with 42 IndyCar wins.
That could have been a little signal that he's coming to the pits. See how he dived down right there? He signaled to Rossi, hey, I'm coming in. So I noticed he popped down on the back straightaway, and that's just letting the other driver have a heads up. I'm backing off right here in the corner, see? And he peels off.
Might wonder, why would you want to indicate to your competition when you're pitting? Because if you don't, they can climb all over you, literally run into the back of you there at turn 3 at the apex. Dixon on pit lane now.
So by leading, he burns a little bit more fuel, Jan.
Yes, he's going to need all the Sunoco here so he can get to that next stint. And we'll look to see if they make any front wing changes. This was predicted that he would be first. No, I don't see any wing changes. That's 7.3 seconds. Again, this will work for him as long as other people stay in this same cycle. Others now putting their tires out for pit stops, just as Mike Hull predicted a lap or 2 later.
You might have also seen Ed Carpenter, who has not been having a good day and crashed yesterday in missed qualifying. That's him coming off pit road right now. And we've got others coming on to pit lane, so it's going to start getting busy with green flag pit stops.
Rossi stays out again.
Newgarden in the top 5 all day.
Joseph Newgarden on his last stop, they actually made a rear wing change and a front wing change. They're not going to do that this time. This is going to be much quicker. Katie, that was 7.2.
And it was a terrible first stop for Simon Pagenaud. They didn't get the changes they wanted. This time he needs some help with turn 1, so they added some front wing.
We also saw Gabby Chavez and Carlos Munoz make stops there.
The rest of these guys are all coming in now, so you got a whole big pack of cars. So could have been a little advantage. Lockups coming in, but maybe a little advantage for Dixon to just have a nice clean pit. You could do your own thing, but look at how busy this pit is.
Tony Kanaan's been complaining of understeer, so they're going to add a turn of front wing. Otherwise, he's happy with the car. That's why he fell a little bit back in that previous stint. There you see it, adding a wing. Katie?
It's been nearly a picture-perfect day for Alexander Rossi. As you see him pull out of his pit box, just a little bit of front wing for turn 3. Jan?
Graham Rahal just leaving the pit box. That was 9.1 seconds, so not an ultra-fast stop. But here comes Sato. That's a much faster stop for Sato, but Rahal took a half a turn of front wing. That'll certainly help him.
And watch this race. Scott Dixon coming around on track. We saw Rossi come back. How will they blend together? Rossi on the cold tires, on board now with Joseph Newgarden, flying by James Hinchcliffe.
Well, we've seen from the first stop, Dixon back in the lead, so it didn't cost them anything to go 2 laps shorter than Rossi on that fuel stint.
Will Power again locks up on the way into his box. We're looking to see if Castro Neves is going to take an opportunity to stop as well. No changes up front, but they waited for all the last for the Sunoco. 7.6 for Will Power.
Where does Will Power blend out? Here comes the field down the front straightaway. That's Dixon leading. Elio coming off pit lane as well. Power's going to blend up maybe right near Tony Kanaan.
he's going to end up back by Rahal once they get around the corner. So I think he's lost some positions by sliding wide.
Side by side with Tony Kanaan, that's Will Power. So Will Power on fresh tires, working it up to speed.
Now, J.R. Hildebrand has not made his second pit stop, so he's the leader for the moment, but he's going to give up that spot. He is now set to head down the pit lane. In fact, he is on pit lane right now.
It's amazing how fast these cars get back up to speed.
And this will give you a really good view for how Hildebrand will fall back to his natural running position by staying out. About 6-7 positions there.
Hinchcliffe gets Newgarden for another position as they continue to go back and forth all the way through the field, and especially up at the front. After pit stop number 2, it's Scott Dixon, Alexander Rossi, James Hinchcliffe, and Joseph Newgarden, and Tony Kanaan. That's exactly as they ran right before the green flag sequence.
And talking about how they run right now, Alexander Rossi has now worked himself mathematically into the championship hunt. As they run right now, Rossi would be 7th in points ahead of his teammate Takuma Sato. And this guy's making a really strong late season run. You never know what's possible as we go down the stretch.
Well, Dixon right now is still content to lead, but having gone 2 laps less than Rossi, if he continues to lead, Jan, this could be a potentially coming in 4 laps short.
Yes, I agree, Paul. I would if I was in Scott Dixon's case. And remember, the call came on the radio originally from Scott saying, hey, Mike, you want me to drop back into traffic? Because he knows that, you know, I really don't want to be out here burning this kind of fuel. Let's see if now as Rossi challenges, if that's by design or just by speed.
Oh, I think that was by design. That was too easy of a pass. So I think he backed it off, and he's going to now sit on him. I don't think they can afford to lose that many laps on the stint.
Rossi just looks unstoppable right now. Passing at will.
He hit a bird or something. He hit something on track. There's feathers or something.
Looks like a streamer. Yeah. Almost like you would have on the end of a stick or something, like a pom-pom.
I think it's gone.
It's on the right side of the car. Maybe we'll get an angle of it here, but it looks like it's gone now. But there was something stuck in the front suspension.
But if that goes into the right side radiator inlet, that could really drive up the engine temperatures.
Third time today, Alexander Rossi has led. He's led 19 laps. Scott Dixon, running in second, has led 25 laps. Kanaan and Power have also led, and Hildebrand led a couple of laps staying out later.
We see here something flapping around right there, right in front of the radiator inlet. And like Townsend said, if that ends up getting sucked in there, you will immediately run into cooling problems.
It's like the Stars and Stripes bandana you were wearing on your head a few minutes ago, Paul.
I wore that in Sturgis for a week.
Rossi's got Stars and Stripes on his car this weekend with a salute to the troops, helping them find jobs with their paint scheme. Alexander Rossi out front. He's led 500-mile races before. He's won the biggest 500-mile race in the world 2 years ago at the Indianapolis 500. Can he take another 500-miler today at Pocono? Rossi, Dixon, Hinchcliffe, Kanaan, and Newgarden. Stay with us. The weekend tradition returns. Throwback NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series racing from historic Darlington Raceway. Sunday, September 3rd at 5:30 Eastern here on NBCSN. Big development off sequence. Jan Will Power is rolling down the pit lane.
Yes, first there was a radio report saying that he might have a tire going down, but then there was a response that he might have a broken front wing. So we're checking the front wing, and they're going to change it. So it could be both, but they're making sure that they get this done now. On a super speedway, this front wing has a tether. They'll have to reach inside. That's for safety purposes. It makes the stop that much longer. And there's waving in the back, potentially a problem with a wheel gun. Wow, the cars are streaming by the front straightaway. This is not obviously going to help Will Power's situation at all.
I think they might have left something in the nose of his car. It looks like the T-handle, or there's a tether on the nose and the wing change.
Yeah, Kanaan just blowing by him. He's obviously got a problem, so we don't know if it was a wing or a tire, but man, that was a really, really unorganized stop. Not what you normally see out of Penske. They couldn't get the front wing off. They were struggling to get that away. The wheel gun in the rear had a problem, so it put him a lap down. I would have thought they could have maybe hung on there.
Well, also the right rear tire changer was yanking on the wheel pod, the rear wing pod, saying it was loose, like suggesting there was an issue with the back. So big trouble for Power. Kanaan gets passed by Pagenaud. And again, I'll point to that excessive vibration on the Penske Chevys. The front wings vibrating a lot.
Well, while this all happened, we have Dixon now back to the lead, and Rossi here fending off Hinchcliffe and the other Ganassi car. So Dixon has slid back into the lead, and Pagenaud has moved forward.
And that's Hinchcliffe working on Rossi now for second. So Scott Dixon, while Power was having his issues, went to the front, and now Rossi has dropped from first to third as Hinchcliffe gets back to second. That's Pagenaud back there in fourth. Kanaan runs in fifth, and Marco Andretti has worked his way up to sixth. He had almost fallen to last at the drop of the green flag, and look at he and Kanaan going at it. The first blue and white car in that battle is Kanaan, then it's Marco Andretti working on fifth place.
Tony gave him the old Pruitt fade right there. You see, as we see Marco here made a move on Joseph Newgarden. Joseph's been going backwards. He's got 3 Penske cars there. He's sliding by with his Andretti car, so he just made a move on Kanaan, and Kanaan faded over on him as well.
So I mentioned how fortunes can change in a 500-mile race. That first stint, Marco Andretti was in big trouble. They obviously made changes at the first stop. They picked up some spots on the stop, and now he is passing the fast guys and into the top 6. Wow. Look at Ryan Hunter-Reay in the yellow and red DHL car coming to the inside of Max Chilton, who had the early problem, and Chilton is a lap down.
Remember, at our last super speedway, Tony Kanaan was not very popular on the racetrack. Always aggressive. Marco Andretti's going to try his best to make another move as Rahal has a nice run down the back straight. Hunter-Reay in front. Actually, that is Chilton.
Inside clear. 3, fill back.
So Rahal goes to Chilton's inside. Again, a lapped car. I've been wondering what happened to Max Chilton. He was running in the top 5 early in the race. Anders, what do you know?
And the reason why he was in the pit for such a long time and actually came back into the pits is he has an issue with a wastegate for the turbo. They had to take the side pod off, as we see a huge battle in the back here of the pack. But yeah, huge issue with the wastegate. But he just came on the radio and said, guys, we can still get this. Katie?
We also wondered why Charlie Kimball dropped back through the field. That's because on the last stop, the team actually dropped the car before the right rear tire changer was finished changing that tire. So they sent him out, brought him back in because they knew they were going to have to anyway, and made a downforce change. Charlie Kimball is now very unhappy with that car.
I tell you what, I got to give a shout out to IndyCar. They've mandated an aero package here to run. And I tell you what, it's not a pack race, but this is great racing. The guys are racy. They could get back and forth. Look at these guys snaking around on the front straightaway. This is really, really good, hard racing.
There's Charlie Kimball there. He is in 11th, and he is still on the lead lap and on board with Joseph Newgarden, who has fallen back to 10th position.
Paul, I agree with you on the aero package. I think the other thing that's really cool today is it's tricky to get the setup right at Pocono. It's a narrow window. What that yields is you see a lot of guys struggle on the first stint, but make a few small changes, and all of a sudden they're right back in it. So a lot to play out here over the next 125 laps.
Carlos Munoz having a decent day, running in 12th position. He's been great on these super speedways when he was with Andretti Autosport, but it's all new this year as Foyt adjusts this year to the Chevy power after they have been running Honda.
Will Power, you see there at the tail end of the field, just passing, but he's a lap down, so now he's got to come all the way through these guys and then come all the way back around. So he is going to need a yellow, and we've only had one so far, which was a very, very minor incident. Could have been questionable even if they went to yellow for it.
Scott Dixon, James Hinchcliffe, Alexander Rossi. That's the top three. Then you see Simon Pagenaud and Tony Kanaan. Great stuff. Stay with us here for 500 miles at Pocono. It's the ABC Supply Company Indy Pocono 500 on NBCSN. Scott Dixon is your latest leader. Alexander Rossi in second, James Hinchcliffe, Simon Pagenaud, Tony Kanaan. And Will Power led briefly early, challenged up front, but he's had issues, and for the moment he finds himself a lap down, running in 20th position. Let's go back to what they were doing on that pit stop, and you mentioned, Townsend, that I think they left something in.
Yeah, it looks like these tethers. There's a little tether right here, and it says remove before flight, and the reason you would have that on there, a lot of people don't know, is there's access for fans to be in the pit lane, and anybody could walk by that front wing and start turning on it. Unlike Formula One and NASCAR, IndyCar is much more accessible to the fans, Jan.
Yes, and here's what they're trying to prevent happening, and that is someone walking by and making an adjustment. But typically, you leave those removed before flight when you bring the car from the garage area. This is Simon Pagenaud's wing. I checked all the other Penske cars. None of the spare wings on pit road have those removable tabs. So I have a feeling that it is brought out from the garage. They did not remove them, and obviously Will Power was sent out. I can tell you, right underneath here, there's a snap ring. That is what broke on Will Power's wing. This was moving up and down and changing the angle of the front wing. That's why they had to change it.
All right, thank you, Jan. Let's go back a couple of races ago at Toronto. Will Power and Scott Dixon, who leads the race right now, they had a little coming together on the opening lap. Severely impacted the championship for both, more so for Will Power because he finished last. For the first time since 2008, he could not get his car repaired. Dixon did make repairs, stayed on the lead lap, and was able to get a top 10 out of it.
He's going to need some luck here. Hopefully get the field to pit under green, get your lap back, and then catch a yellow to then pit on the lead lap. Will Power, as he runs right now, would fall to 6th in the championship, with Alexander Rossi just 13 points behind in 7th as they run right now.
Well, we've had a ton of lead passes up front. Like I said, Dixon is now back out front again. Hinchcliffe and Rossi were battling for second. Rossi has taken over second position, so we'll see. We're coming up pretty close to, here we go. We got as a signal, I'm coming in next lap. So we'll see how many laps Rossi can do versus the last time it was 2.
I can't believe that statistic. 298 passes. Somebody just peeled off and came to pit lane. That's Scott Dixon.
The leader is in, and he has to get on it to get down to 60 miles per hour. So Rossi takes over the lead. Dixon makes stop number 3, Jan.
Yes, and as we predicted, it's going to take a while for him to get back into sequence, especially if Scott Dixon has been leading. He is still within the pit window, which should not be a problem. Again, we don't see any changes. Wow, 6.1 seconds for Scott Dixon. That's fast. We'll have to see how the other cars respond.
Well, we'll see how many laps Rossi and Hinchcliffe go. Carpenter pitted in with him, and look at Hunter Ray gets by Kanan.
That's for 4th.
Oh, and Kanan's trying to get to pit lane. No, he stays out.
He's just bogged down. He got checked up in the middle of the corner. Look at it. You get checked up, like I said earlier. You get a guy does a late pass on you and checks you up. He just lost 3 positions because of it.
Look at Graham Rahal going to the inside in front of Marco Andretti there.
Yeah, and if you remember in the previous pit stop, they added some front wing to Tony Kanaan, and then he charged to the front all the way up to 4th, and ever since he's been fading, so they're potentially going to be making some tire pressure changes here in the next stop.
And James Hinchcliffe has taken over the lead for the first time. Simon Pagenaud trying to come with him, working on Alexander Rossi. Hinchcliffe won at Long Beach earlier this season. Since then, he's led 1 lap. That came during the doubleheader at Detroit, but he's in front here at Pocono as pit stops under green continue, and that's Simon Pagenaud.
And it was a long first stop for Simon Pagenaud as he makes the long trip down pit lane. You see him pulling into his pit box there. On the first stop, they actually completely missed the changes Simon was looking for. This time they're going to look to add some front wing, as you see there, and he is down and away.
Rossi's going to come right back on Hinchcliffe. He wants the lead back. Side by side, Rossi, Hinchcliffe, and Rossi gets him.
Well, he's now gone 2 laps over Dixon, so he's now going to make it 3 laps. It'll be interesting to see if he goes forward. We see more guys peeling off behind, so we got a lot of cars coming down pit lane. Newgarden and Kanan.
Kanan with a big lock up trying to catch up to Newgarden. Newgarden was really aggressive off turn 3.
Yeah, and Tony Kanaan just needs a clean stop here. He hasn't said he wanted any changes, but potentially that tire pressure change we talked about, adding some additional front wing here, Jan.
Joseph Newgarden taking the opportunity for a stop as well. We're keeping an eye for Graham Rahal, who's expected to be on pit road. Looks like routine for Joseph Newgarden, and he'll get out ahead of those who just pitted as well.
Big top fuel burnout by Joseph Newgarden. You got to be careful. You got to be careful you don't break any half shafts on that concrete, but we just saw Dixon go by, so all the rest of the guys coming in now, so it was 3 laps.
Here comes Rossi, Hunter Ray, Rahal, Marco Andretti.
And Alexander Rossi making the trip into his box. He is having an absolutely perfect day. Silent on the radio, no changes for him. Meanwhile, his teammate Brian Hunter-Reay also in his pit box. You see him there just behind. They actually made a front wing and a rear wing adjustment. He's worked his way up to 3rd, Jan.
And for Graham Rahal, he just finishes his service. That's 8.7. Look out! It's tight quarters as he leaves, and he lost a little bit of spot. We see Takuma Sato also finishing his stop as well.
There goes Scott Dixon into turn 1 as the field comes back out. There's Simon Pagenaud. This will be tight racing right here at the exit.
So 3-lap difference for those guys. We see Hinch come in, but that's 4 laps over Dixon. We'll see if that has cost him any time.
And yesterday, James Hinchcliffe was really unhappy with this car. He said he felt really draggy, so the team made a lot of changes to that car overnight. Last time, they were the fastest on pit road. You see him actually overshoot his box. That's terrible. Last time, they were the fastest car on pit lane at a 6.6 second stop. This time, it's the complete opposite, a long one for James Hinchcliffe. He's going to lose a lot of positions.
So James Hinchcliffe had taken the lead for a moment on Alexander Rossi, was running second when this green flag sequence of pits began, but he loses about 2 or 3 seconds, and look at all the track position he's going to lose.
I'll tell you what, that's the biggest lead of the race. Right now, Dixon has a 4.5 second lead over Pagenaud, so pitting early is not costing him time. Unlike a road course will really cost you time. Here, it's not costing him anything.
Well, the only thing that could cost Dixon is later in the race, depending on how yellows might fall, is if he gets stacked up and has to run long on the last stop. Here's Hinchcliffe, and just locks up the right front, and he has to release the brakes if he has that problem, because otherwise you're going to mow over your crew on the inside wall.
You might get a penalty running over that hose. You can see he drove right over that hose, which is a pit lane violation, so that could potentially be a violation as well.
So Hinchcliffe has fallen back to 12th. He's working on Carlos Munoz right in front of him now.
Hitting equipment on pit lane has 3 potential penalties: a financial fine, back of the field, or a black flag. So we'll have to see how they review it, because Hinchcliffe is under review, we understand, from race control.
There's the leader, Scott Dixon. Simon Pagenaud is now 3 seconds behind. Pagenaud, Hunter-Reay, and Rahal at Pocono. You're watching NBCSN's coverage of IndyCar, brought to you by Honda, an official vehicle of the Verizon IndyCar Series, and by Bobby Rahal Automotive Group. Visit us at BobbyRahal.com for all your automotive needs in Pennsylvania. his driver is running in 4th right now. Graham Rahal chasing Ryan Hunter-Reay, Alexander Rossi, and Scott Dixon up front as we near the midpoint of the 500-mile race at Pocono. Just 4 to go in the 2017 Verizon IndyCar Series Championship. That's Marco Andretti, who has recovered after a slow start in that blue and white United Fiber and Data car, working for a moment on Simon Pagenaud, but he lost his momentum. And here's Helio Castroneves getting back. He's been quiet for a while, but working his way back up to 8th.
Marco struggling a bit the last 3 laps. He's lost 3 positions in those 3 laps to Kanaan, Pagenaud, and Castroneves. Now he settles back into a pace as Hinchcliffe is charging back on Kimball.
Hinchcliffe with that long pit stop ran over the hose. There's going to be no penalty, just a monetary fine after the race is over, but he's got a long way to catch up to Dixon now.
And to clarify, it is a penalty, but it's a fine. They have 3 options.
Let's give a shout out to this guy right here. Yeah, Captain America. Crashed so hard yesterday, got out of the car, spent half the night in the hospital getting x-rays, MRIs. We got word late last night, here yesterday, huge crash, boom, hits the wall, got out of the car under his own power, but couldn't put any weight on his hip. He complained immediately about his hip. They took him to the hospital, Lehigh Valley, x-rays, MRIs. We got word late last night. He's going to try to do it, and today, he's running 3rd coming from the back of the field.
He's doing it. 138 G's measured in the accelerometer in his earpiece. And guys, I've had 95 G's before. I was in bed for 2 weeks.
Well, that was this morning after the pit stop practice and the systems check. And what an effort by Ryan Hunter-Reay for the 2nd year in a row, has charged from the back to the front. Katie?
And as his team owner and a former driver, Michael can get inside the head of Ryan. What's he dealing with out there? This has got to be the best medicine for him.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's always good to get back in the car. And, yeah, he feels fine physically. And, I think he's got a good race car, so that always makes you feel good.
And what about Alexander Rossi? He's also led today, been really competitive. Can he win another 500-mile race?
I hope so. One of our cars, I hope, wins it. We have strong cars. We'll have to wait and see. It's such a long way to go yet.
2 of them in the top 3 right now, Kevin.
You guys had pretty good luck on the 500-mile race in Indianapolis, winning 3 of the last 4. Alexander Rossi, one of those winners last year. Rossi still working on Scott Dixon as we near the midway point. Rossi popping out here at Pocono. Formula One is on NBCSN after the summer break. The boys are back next weekend. It's Vettel versus Hamilton versus Eau Rouge as the World Championship hits Belgium. That's life at the speed of Formula One. The Belgian Grand Prix next Sunday morning at 7:30 Eastern here on NBCSN. Vettel's lead on Hamilton is 14 in the championship. And what a race we have here at Pocono as we go past the midpoint. And James Hinchcliffe trying to hang on, and somehow he does not hit the wall.
How did he not hit the wall? He was completely sideways. He got passed by the Foyt car, got up in the gray, and was sideways like a dirt car all the way around the corner at 190 miles an hour.
Whoa, and somebody else is sideways down low. I think that was Will Power. Almost lost it with Takuma Sato, the wild thing to the high side. Two incredible IndyCar saves. I've never seen that in my life. Hinchcliffe with the save of the century, and then Will Power follows it up.
Look at this guy right here. During the break, he took the lead yesterday afternoon, 24 hours ago, took a 138G hit in a qualifying crash. Townsend, that's like take the hit you took when you bought that Porsche a couple weeks ago.
Listen, you told me sometimes a little bit of personal pain or struggle, you end up having your best race. Why is that?
Well, I think his expectations were, hey, I don't have a chance at winning. I just got to get out there. Your expectation level comes down. You're not so wound up and uptight. But, man, this guy is driving the wheels off this car.
Look at this.
20
started on the back row. To the lead, he went third to first during that last break. You saw it on nonstop, and Ryan Hunter-Reay leads his teammate Alexander Rossi. Now let's go back to what we saw with James Hinchcliffe on the top of this three-wide battle.
Hinch gets caught up high in the gray. Light dust and marbles. I just can't believe he kept it off the wall. What a save. Here we go on board again. That's Munoz down low.
The in-car on the steering wheel. Look at that. He's completely hands over, crossed over. Crossed hands, they call that.
I've seen plenty of drivers give up at that point and just pull their hands back and take the hit. And Hinchcliffe, what a sweet move.
And then while we looked at that, Rossi went back to the point as they continue to battle up front here with still nearly 250 miles to go in this 500-mile race. It's Andretti Autosport at the front, and Robin Miller, Michael Andretti's team, leads the conversation as we get really deep in this silly season.
Kevin, here's the whole deal. I asked Michael, have you made a decision yet, Chevrolet or Honda for next year? He said, no, I'm getting close. We may know by Gateway. So the repercussions are big. Michael wants to keep Rossi. Honda wants to keep Rossi. Hinchcliffe wants Rossi as his teammate. Chip Ganassi wants Rossi. So he's suddenly everybody's favorite flavor of the month. They all want Rossi. But if they stay with Honda, if Andretti stays with Honda, there's no reason for Rossi to leave. There's no reason for Sato to leave. So the way this thing's going to play out is all going to be interesting here in the next 7 or 8 days. And Michael is the big domino, and he knows it. So I really believe him when he says he hasn't made up his mind yet, or he probably already told everybody.
Well, the guy that's secure for 100% at Andretti is obviously his son, Marco. And there was no reason why you would ever get rid of this guy. He's your anchor driver in the team and has the major sponsorship with DHL. So he's your team captain right here.
So a lot more to go here as we watch Alexander Rossi lead. And look at the onboard if James Hinchcliffe makes the save of the day. Stay with us from Pocono.
Welcome back to Pocono, where you see in third there Scott Dixon and Mike Hull, his team strategist, have changed their strategy. They decided that yes, running out front is safe, but we've burned a lot of fuel. We stopped, and there you could see the weave back and forth, which is a signal that he will pit. We thought he was going to get all the way to 110 or 11, but now still Scott Dixon, needing to save some fuel, didn't make the numbers and now hits pit road.
So Dixon pits from third, has to lock him up again to get down to 60 miles per hour. Rossi and Hunter Ray out front. Rahal moves up to third now. Newgarden and Kanaan in the top 5.
Should be routine, but of course they're going to take this opportunity again to just make sure, and they're going to do a little bit of front wing, a little bit more than I would have expected for Scott Dixon. Again, they know now that they need to save more fuel than this. This is 112 as he rolls out. It's going to leave him shorter, with other cars having a 4-lap advantage on him. Could definitely play near the end.
So Scott Dixon made up 1 lap on that stint versus his previous stint. And as Jan said, he's going to have to continue. That was 29 laps on that stint. He's going to continue to have to make 29 laps to get himself back into the strategy of guys like Rossi and Hunter Ray.
Look at Ed Carpenter there trying to stay on the lead lap. He was one of the 4 that made contact with the wall yesterday. Pretty heavy contact in practice. They missed getting to the tech line for qualifying by 6 minutes, so that's why he wasn't able to qualify and had to start in the back today. Rossi looking to put him a lap down. Here he comes.
I think you're going to find that Ed Carpenter's probably going to pit. It looked like he dived down a little bit there coming off the corner, but no, he stays out. So these guys are good on their second lap going further. We see a car peel off in the background there.
Here's Simon Pagenaud. He was running in 7th.
So Pagenaud's not making great fuel mileage either, because he's been one of the early takers as well.
Paul, he's felt like he just hasn't had the speed all day. They've been having trouble on pit road and not the speed out on the track either. This time they were debating on what kind of changes to make. They're actually going to make a rear wing change and fill it up with Sunoco fuel.
Pretty quick stop.
Rossi goes by Carpenter, who puts him a lap down. A struggling day for Carpenter, so he's going to hold up Hunter Ray here a little bit. Hopefully he gets out of the way here. Lets these leaders race their own race. Another car peeling off. Looks like a Foyt car coming off the track.
It's Carlos Munoz. He had worked his way up to 10th position, so a strong run for the ABC Supply AJ Foyt team. AJ not here this weekend. Wish the best to Hitlanders.
And it's been such an impressive run here for Carlos Munoz. Such a disappointing year for AJ Foyt and Carlos. Keep in mind, Carlos Munoz has finished 2nd at the Indianapolis 500 more times than he can count. And he's so great at these tracks. And he said, despite the crap qualifying we had yesterday, we're just going to keep our head down. And I'm looking forward to this race so much. And currently in the top 10. Great run.
All right, here they come. The 3 leaders, 3 Hondas coming in.
After 3 consecutive stops of no changes for Alexander Rossi, they're actually, and it's a yellow out on the track in turn 1. That's that's Sebastian Saavedra, Kevin.
Saavedra has stepped into the car for Michaela Lotion this weekend and next, and who was in the pit lane, and that is going to be noteworthy. Hunter Ray is going to beat out Graham Rahal, and then that is Tony Kanaan, I think, in the blue and white car. And that's Alexander Rossi. So all of those 3 will jump Rossi under this yellow. And there's Saavedra. He's come to a stop. So for the moment, we have not seen Newgarden, Castroneves, Marco Andretti pits. Go back again to see what happened to Sebastian Saavedra.
Very similar to his teammate, James Hinchcliffe. Gets high into the gray and pretty heavy impact. Saved it once and then it hooked back into the wall, and the right rear walloped as we get another angle on board. Same deal as Hinchcliffe.
Yeah, he just got high. Car coming out of the pits. Munoz coming out of the pits. He got in high, got into gray, and the front end was gone, so he was just a passenger. As we see right here, the right rear guy had a problem. The tire took off on him, so he had to go chasing after it. That would be a penalty if it got away from the box. Wow, what a disaster of a stop there for the Andretti guys.
Luckily, though, for Rossi, he's on pit lane when the yellow comes out, and so the cars that haven't pitted will cycle to the back when they do stop under yellow. The yellow actually hurts Ed Jones and J.R. Hildebrand, both of whom had achieved great fuel mileage on the last stint. Now that all resets. Jan?
And Townsend, very interesting. As you say, every car that was on pit road, that's a huge advantage, but also anyone who's also stopped, which of course would include Scott Dixon. So if you happen to come in prior, now when everyone peels into pit road, you pick up those track positions. So stopping early today sometimes is a detriment, but worked for Scott Dixon this time.
Yeah, this is like a road course where those that have stayed out are severely disadvantaged. So Joseph Newgarden, Elio Castroneves, Marco Andretti, who have been running in the top 7 or 8, they're going to fall back behind those that have already stopped.
Yep, luckily there's only 8 or 9 cars that did stop, so they won't fall back too far as that whole crew that hasn't pitted now comes on pit lane.
Well, Marco's actually been struggling all day long. He just doesn't have the speed that his teammates Ryan Hunter-Reay and Alexander Rossi did, so you see him pull into his pit box there. We're looking for just a half turn out of front wing, Young.
Yes, and the 2 Penske cars, 2 of the Penske cars did obviously not make that cut. So there's an inter-team rivalry here to see who's going to get out first. Looks to me like Castroneves rolls first and gets that position.
Look how quick he launched out of there. Castroneves, Newgarden, and then third in line is Marco, then James Hinchcliffe, and J.R. Hildebrand, who's had a pretty decent day today. And a little longer stop for Charlie Kimball.
Yeah, more changes for Charlie. He was in the pits early in the race making changes. He just made a front wing change. Big crowd here today.
And they've been entertained. We have had 8 different leaders. Right now it's up for grabs after the yellow flag. Back-to-back-to-back weekends for IndyCar. Next week, the final oval of the season, and IndyCar is back near St. Louis at Gateway. Join us next Saturday night, 9 o'clock coverage. This is from the last time in 2003. Elio Castroneves wins over Tony Kanaan. Scott Dixon dominated that race, but it was Elio winning over TK. Those are the only 3 from that race that are in this race. Paul Tracy, you won the inaugural race there in 1997.
Yeah, and my partner right here, Townsend Bell, won in lights over a 3-time champion, Scott Dixon.
4-time.
4-time champion.
And they've done a lot of work at that track. They have repaved entirely for IndyCar to come back, and great reports of the test there recently. So kudos to all of the staff at Gateway, and we are excited to be back for IndyCar on a short oval coming up next Saturday night. All right, under caution here, just the second of the day at Pocono. Still a lot of racing to go in this 500-mile race, and Ryan Hunter-Reay has moved back to the front. Graham Rahal, Tony Kanaan, Scott Dixon, and Alexander Rossi are the top 5.
I'll tell you what's going to happen now with 80 to go. There's going to be, these restarts are going to become critical. These guys are just going to go crazy on these restarts, Anders.
Yeah, exactly. Crazy racing here, but standing with Sam Schmidt. And Sam, big change of the drivers here, and Sebastian Saavedra's looked so solid, but then had that impact with the wall. What are you thinking after that?
We were actually having a few problems before that, just complete lack of grip, and kept making adjustments, and it wasn't going anywhere. And then we had dropping water pressure, so we were just deciding whether to bring him in. It'll be interesting to see when the car gets back whether we actually had a leak that contributed to it. But he's done a great job and been consistent all weekend and moving his way forward. Had it as high as 12th there for a while, so really disappointing because I knew he was looking for a good run. But we'll go on to Gateway.
Sebastian Saavedra will be back with the team at Gateway, Jan.
Enrico Nald, of course, on the radio to Graham Rahal. You obviously caught a huge break here pitting, but you also have been running strong. As a single-car team, it's so tough, but now have you hit the sweet spot?
Yeah, Graham's really happy with the car. You know, the Honda's running strong. You know, we're really happy to represent the Bobby Rahal Automotive Group here and trying to maintain their level of excellence. Graham's doing a great job, and I think, you know, long race still to go, but I think we have a good chance to give the fight to him.
All right, they've been adjusting on this car back and forth at each one of these pit stops. Graham Rahal been working with his team, and every time he makes a pit stop, this car gets faster.
Well, welcome back to the Pocono 500, sponsored by ABC. And for ABC, A.J. Foyt's not here this weekend. He ran over some trees. He hurt his leg. It swelled up. And happy birthday to Parnell Jones, the oldest living Indy winner at the age of 84 years old. Kevin, let's go racing.
All right. Munoz is up to 7th. That would be the best result that either of those cars have had this season. Back at it at Pocono Raceway. Ryan Hunter-Reay leading Graham Rahal, Tony Kanaan, Scott Dixon, and Alexander Rossi. Rahal pops to the bottom in that red car, trying to challenge Hunter-Reay for the lead as they head to turn 1, and then popping to the outside. That's Tony Kanaan.
Marco Andretti having a look up the inside. No, that's Scott Dixon for the back of the blue and white car. He looked at Hunter-Reay and then wisely backed out.
4th to 1st. He's not concerned about this fuel mileage and how many laps. He made the outside move, but it looked like Rahal was all over the back of Hunter-Reay coming up to the green, but Dixon timed that with perfection. But look at Rahal coming back.
It's the second time that Tony Kanaan has gone from 3rd to 1st on a restart, but he might not lead the lap because Graham Rahal goes back underneath him.
He got the old Pruitt fade from Dixon. He pushed him down to the bottom of the track on the grass. Look at these guys coming off here, 3-4 wide at the back.
So it's Rahal, Kanaan, Hunter-Reay, Rossi, Dixon, Munoz, Pagano.
Wow, who's that running up high? I think that's Max Chilton. Several cars have been in trouble up there.
3 laps down.
Trying to make something happen to get some laps back as Castro Neves gets by Connor Daly.
Power down there on the outside. He's still a lap down. Hasn't been able to get back on. No, he is back on the lead lap. So he's back to the lead laps. So now he's got an opportunity to come back through the field.
And he's a little bit off sequence because he topped off late during that caution. So keep an eye on Will Power. If his car is good, he might be able to make his way back through the field.
I'm mistaken. That was not Dixon. It was Kanaan that took the lead on the outside. I thought it was Dixon, but Dixon right now currently P5.
Well, we gave the shout out to A.J. Foyt. His cars were doing pretty well, worked out well with the timing. Oh, yellow, and a big crash. It's Hinchcliffe, and it's J.R. Hildebrand.
You okay, bud?
It is Hildebrand. Hildebrand and Hinchcliffe into the wall hard.
Yeah.
We heard one affirmative.
I'm sorry, guys.
Apologies after the major impacts.
Small fire there coming out of James Hinchcliffe's cars. Both of these cars really tore up on the right side or the left side of both cars. So looks like they probably made contact and did both a half spin.
After 4 crashes, 3 of them big yesterday. Well, we had avoided any massive contact today, but this is significant. Good to see JR climbing out. And they're working on James Hinchcliffe.
It was like I said, with 80 to go now, these restarts are going to become absolutely frantic. Guys are going to want to make moves, and these cautions are going to breed more cautions.
And good to see Hinchcliffe getting out under his own power as well. Nasty crash.
Let's take a look at what happens here. Hinchcliffe on the inside, down low on Hildebrand.
Kind of just a racing deal. One guy was coming down, the other guy was coming up just a little bit. They barely touched, and both of them in the wall. Hinchcliffe square on the back attenuator.
Hinchcliffe had a little bit of space to the yellow line, but probably didn't want to get too close to the apron. Meanwhile, Hildebrand doesn't really want to run too high because, as we've seen already, if you get up in that gray, you won't finish the corner. So let's watch on board with Hinch here.
Oh, hard hit. Yeah, it was just really one of those racing deals. It was a pretty late attempt by Hinchcliffe to kind of put it in there that late. He was only at his back wheel. Hildebrand was going for the line. You don't want to get too high and get in the gray, and Hinchcliffe was kind of just stuffing it in there really late.
I agree with you, Paul. Plus, Hinch is following some cars into the corner, and you really trust that the room is going to be there if you make a move that late. And with dirty air in front from the car ahead, you're going to have some understeer and undoubtedly slide up the track a bit. You could hear Hinchcliffe was out of the throttle trying to make the front end work, but
that's one of the things that Pocono Raceway has done. They've made massive facility improvements in the last few years, and virtually the entire outside and most of the inside retaining walls are covered by safer barrier now. Only Indianapolis and Daytona have more safer barrier than they have here at Pocono.
Kevin,
So,
here you can see it. I love the history of this. Look at this. This is the original barrier of Pocono Raceway. I think Paul's visited that. Boilerplate back in the day. And then here's the concrete wall that was the new development after the boilerplate. And then you see the safer barrier here with these foam inserts. That's the safer barrier. And back in the day when this was here, there was no chain link. If you went up in the air, you exited stage right and out of the stadium, as they say.
So some have taken the chance to make a quick pit stop, and we've seen that, and we heard that earlier, that there was some concern about that rear wing pod, and we saw it flapping around during the last stop. So Team Penske is going to take the opportunity on right here to change that.
Yes, because he got himself back on the lead lap, this is not really a problem for track position. So go ahead and take this opportunity, because he's been complaining he needs more rear downforce. So he has a new rear section, stays on that same lap. And so this could be exactly what Will Power needs now to try and take a charge from the back. We've seen it once by more than one driver.
I like that strategy. Fix the car, take the fuel, and most importantly, I think, get a fresh set of tires. You're going to be 4 laps fresher than anybody else in the field.
Hey, Townsend, I just noticed something. The reason that he had problem with the rear section here, he's been hit from behind. You can see the imprint of a front wing in that back clip. So we did hear, remember that time we saw him get super sideways? He was on the radio saying he got hit. Well, there's visual evidence he did get hit. Katie?
Hit, Jan, actually came from Charlie Kimball, who came in to change his front nose, because when James Hinchcliffe got sideways, he's the one that ran into the back of Will Power.
Well, we have their teammates back here in 17th and 15th, Newgarden and Power. So
on the hook, James Hinchcliffe, J.R. Hildebrand, one more look. Third caution here at Pocono, and a massive hit.
Hi everyone, I'm Scott Hoke in Monterey, California. Coming up after the race, we will have continuing coverage of NECA Monterey with all kinds of amazing cars, including this 2012 Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car, one of only 5 commemorative editions built for 2012 to commemorate that fabulous and legendary Brumos race team. We'll have that car and much more coming up next.
Scott, sign us up. How many can we get of those?
Is that the one you bought, Townsend?
No, but I want to race in that 2012 GT3 Cup car. And someone sent me a picture. I had a Lotus, former Townsend Bell Lotus GT2 car on sale there. So expensive, though. They wanted 250 grand.
Well, good stuff coming up after we're done, and plenty more to come here. And there is the rear wing assembly of Will Power. Changed during this caution for the Hinchcliffe and J.R. Hildebrand crash, or third of the day, on lap 125. So watch for Will Power, 16th position, but a whole car again, and he was one of those that had been running up at the front. Now running in second is Graham Rahal. Paul, you're going to try to talk to him.
I'm going to try. Hey, Graham, Paul Tracy, can you hear me?
Yep, copy PT. How you doing, bud?
Hey, buddy, you're marching forward, kind of like I kind of see like a California Speedway, Texas, but you're in position way early. Normally, you're right there at the end, so you obviously got your car better.
Yeah, you know, I think our guys done a good job in the pits, making the right adjustments. The car was significantly better than yesterday, obviously, and you know, we were able to be in the hunt here. But you know, we'll see. I think Hunter Ray looks good. Obviously, Dixie looks good. You know, Canon's leading, and you can never forget about those pesky Penskes. So, you know, we'll just have to see what happens here.
Yeah, it looks like these restarts are going to get pretty wild, so we'll let you get after. You had a nice restart last run, but be careful.
Yeah, but it's going to get crazy here a little bit, but hopefully we can have a nice, long, safe run to the finish here for everybody.
All right, good luck.
It's going to get crazy. It's been pretty crazy. Robin, go ahead.
Hinch, you're all right. What happened? A racing accident, or everybody ran out of room?
Yeah, I think a racing deal. You know, a bunch of guys were kind of too wide there, and I was on the inside of JR, and you know, I was talking to him in there. He said he got a little bit loose, and it didn't really matter. He kind of put a bunch of he got a bunch of understeer, put a bunch of wheel into it, and it kind of pitched him sideways and moved him down into me. So it's just. You know, ultimately, it's my fault because we shouldn't have been back there. You know, I made that mistake on pit road, and I'm so sorry for the boys. They had a killer first stop, got us into the top 5. We ran away to the front. We were just kind of cruising, man. We were having a really good race, and I screwed up in the pits, put us back there. We started making some moves, and I had an unbelievable sideways moment coming up.
No, you had a sprint car moment, son. That was one of the... Townsend Bell says the save of the year.
Well, yeah, we were. I was at Grandview Speedway on Thursday. I was learning some tips from those guys, so thank God I did that. But like I said, we shouldn't have been back there. I feel bad for the boys. They deserved a solid, probably podium finish today, and we're having fun running up there. And yeah, we'll regroup and move on to Gateway.
Thanks, kid. JR, you're all right, brother. Hinch said you guys were talking. You got a little loose, maybe?
Yeah, I just, you know, we were running down in there too wide, and the cars in front of us spread out and went too wide. So as soon as that happened, I got a bunch of push right away. So I fed wheel in, and you know, Hinch was down on the bottom, so it sort of hooked up, and you know, I just wasn't leaving enough room for all of that to be going on and him to be down there. So you know, we were fighting the car a little bit all day, but the guys have been doing a good job. We've been making good fuel economy. So just frustrating to have it end that way, and a bummer to have taken out Hinch, you know, with that incident.
It looked like your car came to life like midway through the first or second stint, and then it kind of fell back.
Yeah, you know, we were good for periods. We were really good through turn 1. Just couldn't quite get it dialed in through 3. So we were losing a lot of time and a lot of speed, particularly off the corner in 3. And we were, you know, trying to kind of find it as we went along. We were tuning the car, you know, kind of in and out, but it just wasn't quite there. Hopefully, it you know, maybe it would have been towards the end. It felt pretty good for the first couple laps on new tires, but yeah, just a really unfortunate way to end what's been a tough weekend. But you know, we've been able to get through these things so far this year, so I feel bad for the Fuzzy's Vodka boys.
Thanks, kid. Kevin.
Paul, when's the last time you'd heard two drivers both take responsibility and almost apologize?
Well, they're buddies with each other. They've raced each other a long time, and lights and all kinds of stuff. So they Both not trying to step on each other's toes.
Going back to green next time by, but let's check our Chevy driver profile. Gabby Chavez in his 3rd race of the year for a new team, Harding Racing, a paving company out of Indianapolis. Mike Harding has put together a good program with Larry Curry running it. They are looking good to be full-time next year, maybe even a 2nd car.
As soon as this is over, I'm going to update my driver resume with competitive drone pilot, because clearly that's what they're looking for in the series these days.
Chavez has had 2 good runs, 9th at Indianapolis, 5th at Texas. It's been tough sledding for him today. He's the last car in the lead lap, running in 17th. Also want to mention Connor Daly in 14th. He has worked his way up to 9th through that pit sequence, but he was penalized at a drive-through right as the crash was happening for taking more service than allowed during a closed pit. All right, that's Tony Kanaan up front. Graham Rahal in the red car. Ryan Hunter-Reay, the yellow and red car. Then Alexander Rossi running in 4th position. Kanaan, Hunter-Reay, Rossi, and then Dixon in 5th. Have all led a lot of laps. Simon Pagenaud in 6th. Back up through the gears. Still a lot of racing to go, and here we go again from Pocono.
Oh, a lot of defensive driving going on. Look at Hunter-Reay. Graham Rahal shoving it up the inside.
Rahal going for the lead. Hunter-Reay trying to come with him, and Rahal is in front.
Rahal really strong restart. He takes the lead. We'll see how long he wants to hang on to it. But these guys, like I said, it's going to get real racy from here out. We've still got a long way to go, but you can see there's more urgency in these guys now.
Kanaan trying to come back.
I think he will.
Problem is you get bogged down right there in the middle of the corner, and Hunter-Reay will have a nice run now coming off the corner on Rahal. Rossi now has recovered after that stop. He's now in 4th, right behind his teammate. Ready to pop out right here. There he goes.
Oh boy, Rossi to the inside. Waited till the last second. Nice move from Alexander Rossi. Hunter-Reay goes back to 4th, and now here comes Scott Dixon.
Dixon pops to the inside, and he will get that position. That is for 4th.
You can see these guys now, Townsend, they're making more aggressive passes. They're doing it later into the corner, waiting till the last second to pop out. And guys are not wanting to back off.
Graham Rahal taking the lead there on the back straightaway. Graham Rahal, this is the best 500-mile race he's had. Strong race car and a strong drive.
He has won 2 super speedway races, including at Fontana, but he has been strong all day here today. That's the championship as it stands at the moment. Scott Dixon, the current leader, but there is a long way to go here. We started the day with top 4 separated by 17. They've just swapped positions around a little bit.
We rocketed through the first 100 laps. Kanaan now coming back into turn 3 right here. So we rocketed through the first 100 laps. It's all slowed down a little bit with these 2 yellows, but hopefully these guys can keep it all together here. Nice, clean racing going on.
It looks like you just can't keep anybody behind you.
It's hard. Now, speaking of somebody behind, Joseph Newgarden came in the points leader, currently runs back in 11th. He opted to pit on that last yellow.
Look at that wings, those wings moving around like we've been talking about.
Yeah, big vibration. But with Newgarden back there, what that does for Graham Rahal, he currently sits about 40 points out of the lead. So that points championship is only tightening up. And look at Power now making a move on Marco Andretti. Fresh tires, a car that's fixed, and here's another pass for the lead.
Rahal back to the inside of Kanaan as they continue to go back and forth here at Pocono. And we saw Power, that was really the first position he had gotten, so he has not carved them up since this pit stop. That position on Andretti only got him to 15th.
Passes for the lead 2 times a lap since the restart, so these guys are getting after it.
Yeah, and guys, keep in mind, TK's been so strong at the beginning of each stint. He's very, very happy with the car early on, but then as the run goes on, he tends to fade a little bit. And you just see how strong he is through the middle of the corner. He can place the car elsewhere. He's going anywhere he wants. He's going for the lead.
Already 9 lead changes today. 9 different leaders, I should say, and 25 lead changes. The record is 33 and 12 different leaders, both 2 years ago here at Pocono.
Another interesting thing to note as we look out the back of Graham Rahal is this is the last time we'll be seeing the Honda and Chevy Super Speedway Aero kits. This is the swan song. They go to spec bodywork next year. You'll still have Honda and Chevrolet engines, but everybody will be on the same bodywork.
And the testing has gone very well so far, and the feeling is that they'll race even better. I'm not sure how you can race much better than this as Graham Rahal goes back to the front around Tony Kanaan.
Not sure these guys are doing this by design or they just really want to lead. So obviously fuel mileage is going to be critical here, getting to the end of the race and getting to that last pit windows. We got two by two here. Newgarden trying to thread the middle right here with his teammate.
Two Penske's very anxious. Newgarden and Will Power trying to get back into the mix at the front of the field. They have to be careful that they have a chance with moves like that. That was getting way out of hand.
Well, I mentioned Power hadn't made up a lot of ground, but he's starting to charge now. For a moment, he was in the 12th position. He's trying to get back to 13th right now. Here's Kanaan again to the front. Rossi thinks about going with him. It's Kanaan, Rahal, Rossi, Dixon, and Hunter Ray at Pocono.
It's an all Honda show at the front. The first Chevy is Pagano in 6th place. We've got Andretti cars up front, Rossi, Hunter Ray. Then we have Dixon in the mix, Kanaan, and the two Ganassi cars with Dixon and Kanaan.
Rossi had an issue there. Now he falls back into the clutches of his teammate, Ryan Hunter-Reay. That is a pass for 4th position.
Dixon got Rossi first, then Hunter-Reay will follow to go into 4th. And here's Graham Rahal popping down to the bottom once again.
Turn 3 is the spot for these guys. They get a nice run and like getting off of 2. Both of these guys have been passing each other going into turn 3.
I think you work the car in front through turn 1, you draft up, stay close through the shortest radius corner, turn 2, and then that gives you a shot going into 3.
And look at the entire field, 17 deep, separated by under 8 seconds.
Going to be a heck of a finish.
Another run by Kanaan. You see that same move. He's going to stay close in 2, tuck down low, and here he is. He's going to make the move into 3. This is every lap. These guys have been passing each other for the lead.
So this is like Indy a few years ago.
They're not holding each other up because they're not falling into the clutches of Dixon.
Now you got to start thinking about the end of this race and how you're going to work the strategy to make sure you're the last one that makes a pass. So plenty more to come, and this is going to be interesting. Might we see something like this? Remember Graham Rahal winning at Fontana 2 years ago. He finished under the yellow, but it was wild throughout. What's in store today at Pocono? 34 different lead changes in the IndyCar 500-mile race. The ABC Supply 500 from Pocono Raceway. You saw several more in nonstop. Tony Kanaan leading right now, going back and forth with Graham Rahal. Ryan Hunter-Reay there in the yellow DHL car is lurking in third position. Scott Dixon and Helio Castroneves is back up to the top 5. And note, Carlos Munoz is hanging in there. He got a break with the timing of the yellow. He is in 7th, right behind Simon Pagenaud.
And Paul, all that passing into turn 3 tells me that at the end of this race, I don't think you want to lead to start the last lap. I think you want to be in 2nd to pull that move off, and it won't give the other guy a chance at the line.
No, I think what you've got to position, this is turning into almost like a Talladega, Daytona style, draft race. So these guys have got to get it set up. I don't think you want to be leading going into the last lap, that's for sure.
We saw Ed Jones there for a moment as Graham Rahal goes back to the front for our 35th lead change. But Ed Jones, who was so strong at Indianapolis with a 3rd place finish, wasn't particularly quick yesterday, but the rookie is learning as he goes, and he's now running in 9th position. Just got around the pole sitter, Takuma Sato. There's Jones right there for Dale Coyne Racing.
Really solid. Look at that. Currently 9th. It's been as high as 3rd. Dale Coyne was so strong in Indianapolis. Even after Bourdais' crash, James Davison stepped in, was very fast. Ed Jones was quick. And this is the point in the tire stint. I think we're about 3 or 4 laps from most of these guys pitting. I saw Graham Rahal start to wiggle a bit. Last time this happened, there goes Kanaan back to the front.
Last lap for Graham Rahal was almost 215 miles an hour with a pass for the lead. So these guys are not going slow by any means.
It's a record number of lead changes today at Pocono Raceway for IndyCar. That was the 36th, 33 the previous mark 2 years ago. On board with our Firestone telemetry for Graham Rahal.
Little downshift there going into turn 1. We'll make probably an upshift in between turns 2 and 3 right here. He's got drafting up, breathed it a little bit.
He's going to back out.
Didn't have it. I think that's the first time they haven't made a pass since the restart.
Well, he knows he can do it, and I think he's smart to save it. Just study, make the adjustments in the cockpit to practice.
Got a car in the pit lane. I don't know if that's Dixon.
It is Scott Dixon. Scott Dixon rolling down the pit lane, so he's the first of the leaders to come in, Jan.
Yes, and of course, remember, there's that 4-lap deficit that he has. Now, of course, he's well within the window now. All that caution period, it's not going to be a problem with getting him to the end. He'll just be stopping before the others. 7.7 seconds. I saw no visible changes for Wing, but of course, they can do a little bit of tire pressure.
Scott Dixon will be a good spot. Remember how he had an advantage doing that earlier in the race as Graham Rahal goes back to the front.
I think it's been an advantage for him to pit early. He's had a clear pit lane. He can concentrate on getting in the pit, braking late, not sliding into the speed limit zone, and not having traffic around. So that has clearly been an advantage for him. So after this shakes out, as we see Sato coming, let's see if he can retain the lead again.
I think that was a great point, that you'd like to pit with an open pit lane, because we've seen some really busy work on pit lane, Jan.
Yes, and Takuma Sato has been struggling with understeer all day. In fact, they're going to add 2 turns of front wing this time. You can see that delays the stop slightly. Still trying to get this car balanced.
Well, we know it can be fast. He won the pole as the last one to go out yesterday with 2 blistering laps. And now pit lane starts to get busy. And here are some of the leaders. Graham Rahal and Tony Kanaan are coming in. For the moment, Ryan Hunter-Reay is in front, Anders.
And Tony Kanaan is just going to add 1 other half of front wing here. He's super happy with the car, and he feels like the car has really come to him as the temperatures have cooled down out here at Pocono Raceway. He couldn't be happier, Katie.
Simon Pagenaud has worked his way to the front, but he doesn't feel like he has the speed to lead. No changes for him on this stop, Jan.
And for Graham Rahal, as you can see, side-by-side action, Graham lost a little bit of time. That was 9.3 seconds. One of the tires seemed like it took longer than the fuel, and he paid the price as far as track position.
Look at Helio Castroneves back up there in second, but he is one of those that's going to dip down to pit lane this time. Ryan Hunter-Reay remains on track in the lead.
It's been a solid run here for Carlos Munoz so far, just staying out of trouble. Keep in mind just how bad they've been in qualifying so far, but in the race they've been charging to the front, looking on track here for a solid top 10 finish. Jan?
For Castro Neves, he has been quietly working his way towards the front. That was a very quick stop, 6.8 seconds. That's one of the lowest we've seen here later in the stages when the fuel flows not as quickly.
We've had over 500 passes now in this race, and let's watch Castro Neves come back out. Here comes Graham Rahal and Tony Kanaan.
So Rahal got just in front of Scott Dixon there, who runs behind Rahal, and there's Tony Kanaan in third, coming up around the Foyt car of Munoz, and there's Simon Pagenaud, who did really well on that cycle of stops.
But Dixon has moved from about fourth or fifth up to second now so far out of this pit stop exchange.
That's Kanaan back there working on Helio Castroneves on the warmer Firestones, and he'll get that position. Hunter Ray still is the leader. He's yet to make his next to last pit stop. And Will Power has cycled up to second. Ed Jones third. Alexander Rossi in fourth.
So these are your effective leaders of the guys who have pitted. So here's the leader, Hunter Ray, in now.
What an incredible day for Ryan Hunter-Reay as he comes down pit lane. We'll watch him and wait for him to pull into his pit box. He is going to go for an adjustment on both his front wing and his rear wing. This is crucial for Ryan Hunter-Reay. As you see Tony Kanaan going back to the lead, and Ryan Hunter-Reay is down and away.
Super clean stop with wing adjustments, 7.7, so that was nice and clean.
Now here comes the good action. The blend. Ryan Hunter-Reay, what a stop that was. He's going to cycle up. He's not up to speed. The field's at 220 miles an hour on the front straight. They'll catch him at the exit of one, but I think he might hold the lead.
Here comes Kanaan. Here comes Rahal behind him.
Look at Hunter-Reay go low. He's defending. He's saying, you can pass me on the inside or outside. It looks like the inside.
That's
Scott Dixon goes
actually.
by.
It's Dixon who got around, and now Rossi is in, Katie.
And he has fallen back during the middle of that stint. The car was sliding around a lot. They made a change on that last stop that just didn't work for Alex, and they went back on that adjustment.
So that early pit stop right now looks like it's put Dixon back in the lead. That clean pit lane, braking the way you want to brake, not having to worry about other guys. We'll see Rossi come out. Dixon's going to swallow him up right on the entry of turn one.
Oh, Rossi's going to be under fire here. There goes Graham Rahal to the high side. And I think what we saw, guys, with Dixon was he was saving fuel early. Now he's fine on fuel, and they've unleashed Scott Dixon to go for it. Look at Kanaan now.
Peek to the bottom of Graham Rahal. Can't get it right there.
Kanaan's job now as a team player for him is to get himself up into second place and protect Scott Dixon.
Whoa!
So as he slides by Rahal with a brave pass, what his job is next is to get in front of Ryan Hunter-Reay and play protector for his team leader.
That was a good old-fashioned Saturday night slide job. Look at Rossi making a late move, 3 wide.
Rossi on the bottom, Castroneves in the middle, and wisely, Rahal is going to back out there.
Here comes Munoz.
The top 5 still need to make their final pit. It's Power, Newgarden, Andretti, Daly, and Chavez, or I should say they're next to the last pit stop. They have not made this stop. So it's really Dixon as the effective leader of this race. Pagenaud coming back around Rahal. So Graham has been battling for the lead, but losing some spots right here.
His momentum got killed in turn one, and you just lose positions. So we've got Dixon out front, Hunter-Reay in second. Kanaan now chasing him down. He wants to get to second to protect his teammate.
And all of the leaders still need to do one more pit stop. Right now, the top 5 have to do 2 more stops. You won't miss anything in nonstop. Stay with us as the action continues for Indycar at Pocono. And there's been a major turn of events here at Pocono Raceway. Will Power had been in the lead, had just turned the fastest lap of the race. He was a little bit off sequence because he had topped off during a caution. He's just taken his pit stop, and look at this. He's come back out in front.
And that's the biggest lead that we've seen anybody have all day. Late, long run, fast laps, turned the fastest lap of the race, the lap before he was going to pit, and that has put him into almost a 5-second lead here.
And he's back on to the strategy of the other cars. Everybody will have to make one more stop.
And an advantage he has is he'll need to take a little less fuel than everybody.
That's
right?
correct.
And if you have these guys back here just passing each other every lap, back and forth, he could stay out front and just stay in that clean air.
You're right. Kanaan and Dixon, Rossi, Castroneves, they need to think smart right now, which is basically stay single file. As long as Kanaan's car is quick enough over a single lap, it behooves the rest of these guys to stay in line, just make sure they catch power.
Well, this is somewhat how Will Power won this race last year. He was generally in 4th or 5th all race, but it was the last pit stop under green that he used quick in and out laps to jump out to the front, and then he got the break of Ryan Hunter-Reay having the power issue when they were battling for the lead. Jan, what do you know?
Well, this situation with Will Power, it's just so interesting that when you have an issue, you never want to give up, and it's the opportunity that each time you have a caution and you don't have to worry about track position, just keep working on it. You saw how many pieces of this car they changed. They've changed the front wing. They changed the rear complete section of this car. They made wing adjustments in between, and then they stopped, I believe, 4 times under caution at the end to make sure they had the latest possible window for fuel, and now that's paying off.
Great point, Jan. I think the damage to the rear wing of Will Power also was causing a lot of drag, so his straight line speed has picked up a lot. Watching the lap times, Will Power does a 42.2 second lap and Kanaan 42.2, so that gap is not closing.
Battle for 6th there. Ryan Hunter-Reay and Elio Castroneves both crashed yesterday in qualifying. Both have been a factor here today.
Racing an IndyCar on a big track like this, there's not a detriment for a car to be out front with a big lead like a stock car. When you see a car out in the big lead and the pack is behind, the pack is much faster and will catch that lead car really quickly. As these guys sit here, they're passing each other and they're back and forth and back and forth. They're actually going slower than what the guy can do out front. Well, Power.
The difference is here at Pocono, it's very hard to stay full throttle through turn 3 there. At Indianapolis, the pack will be faster than one car on its own, but it's really not the case here at Pocono on the tricky triangle.
So that's Kanaan there in 2nd, the first of the blue and white cars. His teammate, Scott Dixon, right behind him, looks to pop to the inside. Then Alexander Rossi in the red, white, and blue car. And Joseph Newgarden there in the green and black car has worked his way back up to 5th. One more pit stop to go. Stay with us from Pocono Raceway for IndyCar. Will Power has overcome significant adversity in this race. He was running a lap down, then running on the lead lap at the back, but now he is at the front, and look at that advantage. It's gone back and forth for the lead all day in this 500-mile IndyCar race at Pocono, but Power leads Scott Dixon by 4.2 seconds. What's the rest of the pack thinking after they've been working at it all day? Here's another pass for position as Alexander Rossi goes below Scott Dixon for second, and then they watch how far Power is in front.
Well, he's been able to maintain a 4.2 second lead this lap as he passes over the line. 213.3 miles an hour, but Rossi 215, then 211 for Dixon. So we'll just see if they can slightly creep up on these guys and work their way back, but time's running out. We got not a lot of laps left, and they got a big gap to cut down.
It's Ryan Hunter-Reay making a move on Castro Neves. Castro Neves had to be very careful, and it cost him down the back straightaway as Pocono, his teammate, also made a pass.
Hunter-Reay in 6th, Pocono in 7th, Castro Neves in 8th. So the Penske cars are all running together except up front, Will Power. And at one point, I remember it was 1 through 5 for Honda. The Chevrolet driver update sees Will Power in front. 1st, 5th, 7th, 8th, 9th. Still a good mix between Honda and Chevy, but it's Chevy in control right now. They've won one more race this season than Honda has as this manufacturer battle continues.
You know, it was only a couple of races ago in Toronto. We got the pole sitter in here not having a good day, but a couple of races ago, Will Power said, look, I'm out of the championship. We got no chance now, as we see Kanaan or Dixon go by Rossi. And then he put himself back in the picture with that solid finish at Mid-Ohio. Right now, if it were to finish, he'd pull himself back only to 36 points behind the leader.
So Sato should be in the window to make that his final stop. He can go the rest of the way. And look at Power below by him. The warm Firestones.
Smart move, I think, for Sato, because if a yellow does come out, he'll go right to the front. Wouldn't that be fun to see Sato restart from the lead?
Well, this is like a road course. You want to make your last stop as soon as you can. Katie?
And Kevin, earlier on in the race, we thought that Alexander Rossi might be the car to beat today. He came over the radio just now, and he is not so confident that's the truth.
I feel like we might be too slow to win it, guys.
And right after that, his strategist, Rob Edwards, came over the radio and said, we just need you to focus forward.
He's still in the chase, 3rd right now. That's Scott Dixon ahead of him, and Tony Kanaan right behind him.
Still think Rossi has a very strong car at the end of the stint, and depending on where the rest of the leaders decide to pit,
you know, I think the guys
at the end of it, you know, come the end of the race. So I think he's got a shot.
I think the guys that did some changes on the last stop, like Hunter-Reay, I gotta believe that he took some downforce and drag off, and he really hasn't been a factor again since he's done that. He's been kind of stuck in 6th place where he was up there battling for the lead. So I still got to think downforce here, getting through the corner and being able to stay close is king.
But we'll keep an eye on the last pit stops for everyone if they do make a downforce adjustment. Some people might add if they need it, and some people think need to trim out, need to find the speed for the finish.
25 to go in this 500-mile race at Pocono. And Will Power in front by now 3.3 seconds, but if he wins this, it would be number 32, and he would pass 2 heavyweights, Dario Franchitti and Paul Tracy, who both won 31 races in their career.
That last lap for Power was a 2:13.8. Again, he's been consistent, 2:13.8, but Dixon a 2:15.3, so, and a 2:15 for Rossi, so they are starting to claw down that lead.
It was 4.2 seconds, now 3 seconds.
While they are gaining, Power is just hoping for no caution. Green flag pit stops, green flag racing. Try to catch me if you can.
The only thing that he's got going for him here is that if Sato gets in the mix with these guys and starts to race, Dixon comes to the pits.
So he's going to be the second and the first of the leaders to make his final stop. Scott Dixon getting down to 60 miles per hour.
We've talked about how important these stops are. This will be the most important because it's the final stop for Scott Dixon, bar a caution. They want to be as fast as they possibly can. They might not need all the fuel. That's just over 8 seconds for Scott Dixon. We'll see the others on pit road shortly, I'm sure.
Guy on the outside rear looked a little bit late compared to the others, so that wasn't as slick as most of his other stops.
There comes Will Power to pit lane.
So this race after this stop is going to give us a real indication. The leader, Will Power, taking his final stop.
This will be very interesting because, you know, Will Power was here not that long ago. He wants to protect himself, get some new tires, make a slight change on the wing, but this should not need all the fuel for certain. This should be very, very quick. There's that little bit of wing change.
He's in the window, Jan, so he's got to protect himself in case of the yellow, because if he got caught a yellow, he'd go to the back of the field again, and it's too late for that.
Scott Dixon is passing the start-finish line right now for the effective lead of this race. Power well in front. Dixon has a lap more warmth on the Firestones, but I don't think he has anything for Will Power right now as we see Simon Pagenaud head down the pit lane. So Pagenaud will make his final stop. Rossi is the leader right now, followed by Kanaan, Newgarden, Hunter-Reay, and Castroneves. They and many others still need to make their final pit stop. The effective leader is right now in 12th, and that's Will Power.
And remember, it was about a 3-second gap for Power back to Dixon and then Rossi. So we'll have to see how that gap ends up after Rossi cycles through on a stop as Pagenaud comes back out.
Pagenaud comes out, really has not been a factor today like his teammate Power has come from now the back to the front. He's really kind of been mired. So we see Castroneves, who's also really not been a factor all day. These guys have been 7th to 10th all day.
Power and Dixon got by Pagenaud. So those are the three leaders that have made their final stop. Jan, here comes Elio for the last time.
Yes, again, the pressure on the crews to try and get this done as quickly as possible. We heard that Will Power actually was calling to trim out. That's why we saw the wing change for him. That was lightning fast, 6.8 seconds for Castroneves.
Now we're getting into a window where they don't need much fuel at all. Would anyone think about not changing tires? 15 to 20 laps is a long way to go in a super speedway. All right, Tony Kanaan is also coming down as we're on board with Graham Rahal. Anders.
And Tony Kanaan just needs to clean stop here. Again, he's so happy with the cars on the opening stint, so just the fresh set of tires to Sunoco fuel, and he'll be on his way here, guys.
From 21st to 4th, it's been an incredible day for Ryan Hunter-Reay after a vicious crash yesterday. No changes for him on this final stop.
And for Graham Rahal, let's see how he cycles. We see Kanaan go by. There goes Ryan Hunter-Reay. 9.9 seconds there for Graham Rahal, slightly longer in that same track position.
And there goes Will Power. Scott Dixon is by.
Rossi is in the lead now. Newgarden is now taking lead. Rossi in the pit lane.
And after dominating early on in the race, Alexander Rossi is really unsure if he can win it now. Let's see if it's a clean stop for him. It's a crucial last one. It's clean and he's down and away, Kevin.
That's a good stop for Alexander Rossi, so we'll get a look at him. I think it's going to be very difficult for him as Will Power is now on the main straightaway.
Big
and
burnout.
He is going to zoom by him, but can maybe Rossi settle in there and pick up some positions? That's Power going by on the high side. What about Scott Dixon coming next?
Big burnout, but I didn't see any wing change on that Rossi car. He wanted less downforce, so he is cycled out into second right now. Can he chase down the leader as Newgarden's in?
I think Rossi did really well on that cycle of stops.
Final stop for Joseph Newgarden. Right on the marks again. These are the cars that won't necessarily need all the fuel. We'll see if they've made so many wings. Wow, that was 5.4 seconds. That's what you want at the end of the race.
Uh-oh, let's take a look and see where Newgarden comes out. Again, I don't think he has anything for his teammate Will Power, but maybe can he slot into second? There goes Power. Here comes Rossi. Newgarden stays in front for the moment, but Rossi has got a full steam ahead. Here he comes. We're watching on board for Newgarden. Rossi back to second. or effectively second in the race. Marco Andretti has not made his final stop, so he's the leader for the moment. He's the last one that has not made that final stop.
Look at Kanaan.
Kanaan makes the move, so now Newgarden is up to speed. He hasn't had the speed to stay with these front guys throughout the whole race, so hopefully he doesn't impede Dixon and keep him behind him for a while, but he really hasn't shown the speed over the long 20, 30 lap stint to be able to play with these guys up front. Still a big lead for Power. He's still maintaining about a 3-second lead.
It was 3 seconds, Paul, but it's now down to 2 seconds. So Rossi just needs to clip into the draft off of Power, and I think he'll have a chance to close, but he's got this problem now. Tony Kanaan wants to win Pocono.
Tony Kanaan fighting for his ride with Ganassi Racing. He wants to stay with these guys. There's other people that want him. He's one of the best drivers in the field. It's been a frustrating year for him, and this is a place where he would love to win another 500-miler.
Are these guys better off working together and staying in line to try to catch up to Will Power? How much does that matter?
I think Tony Kanaan is absolutely flying right now. I don't think he wants to work with anybody except the checkered flag and be the first to work with it. Kanaan gapped Rossi by nearly a second just on that lap.
And he turned the fastest lap of the race a couple of laps ago at 218.325 miles per hour, trying to win for the first time in nearly 3 years.
He's closing the gap. It's now down under 1 second, or under 2 seconds.
Meanwhile, Marco Andretti is up front by 23 seconds, but he's going to lose that advantage. It's about a 32-second loss when you make the final stop, and Marco will be doing it soon, and then Will Power will take over, but Kanaan and Rossi might be coming. Stay with us for the finish from Pocono. Just over 10 laps remaining in this 500-mile race, the ABC Supply 500 Indycar from Pocono. Marco Andretti remains the leader in his home state, but he still needs to make one more pit stop. And Will Power is poised to take the advantage. But Joseph Newgarden has worked his way up to third position. He was languishing back in 14th not that long ago, but Joe New has been on a charge.
That's Scott Dixon, I believe, defending to the inside on Pagano.
For sixth.
Marco's going to do a fuel only, no tires, just a splash and go. So there's going to be a quick one here. He doesn't need a lot of fuel.
Only, hit your mark.
Marco Andretti was hoping something might work his way there.
He's going to cycle out probably around 8th or 9th, maybe 10th. I mean, that was 7 seconds to take fuel only.
Could have put tires on it. The fuel guy had trouble getting it in, so you almost could have taken tires. So he's going to end up at the tail end of this line. But right now, Power still hanging on to that advantage, but it is closing ever so slightly every lap.
So Will Power back to the front after Andretti pits, but look at Joseph Newgarden charging. Newgarden is within about 7 or 8 car lengths.
And Will Power has had no company for the last 25 laps. And remember what we said earlier, I think you want to be in second place for the last lap. And now Newgarden is well within the draft of Will Power.
Yes, and what is so interesting is Will Power made his way to the front by having some extra downforce. He's been calling on the radio, I need to trim out, I need to trim out. Interestingly, Joseph Newgarden, who is behind him, has been struggling with too little downforce during the race, and they got to the point where they couldn't add any more. Now we get to the end. He's got some clear air. You've got 2 Penske cars with different downforce levels, and I think Joseph Newgarden might have just what he wants.
I think Alexander Rossi, the closer we get to the finish, the stronger Rossi car gets at the end of the tire stint. I like where Rossi sits too in this shootout for the end.
Well, he's right there. He's definitely going to make a move here. He's been making late moves. Got a little bit of a fade job by Newgarden there, but they have now closed the gap to Will Power. So we got a 3-car fight in the final 9 laps to go. They've gapped the rest of the field.
We've had 10 different leaders, a record 43 lead changes here at Pocono, and there might be another one coming. Will Power looked like he was in control, but Joseph Newgarden is within range, and Alexander Rossi is also in striking distance.
I think Rossi's back there just kind of testing the line, testing the momentum, getting ready to plan out the run.
That's Tony Kanaan back there in 4th. It's Simon Pagenaud in 5th. Scott Dixon, Elio Castroneves, Ryan Hunter-Reay, Graham Rahal, and Carlos Munoz, the top 10.
Dixon has faded back to 6th after all this pit stop exchange, and now he's got an 18-point deficit to Joseph Newgarden.
And remember, Newgarden has won the last 2 races, trying to win 3 in a row. And the last to win 3 in a row, still in his 20s, Scott Dixon back in 2007. The 26-year-old from Tennessee came into this weekend as the championship leader. As they run, he is once again the championship leader by 18 over Scott Dixon. But this, despite there only being 7 laps to go, is far from done. And Power comes down to the bottom line, opening up to the top side for Newgarden. Not this time, but Newgarden is right there. And here comes Alexander Rossi.
I'll bet Joseph Newgarden didn't see that coming. And remember, at Mid-Ohio, it was Newgarden who put an unexpected move on Will Power for the win there. I thought Power had a problem, but he was just anticipating a run from Newgarden and took the option away.
That's a last lap break the draft at Indianapolis type move with 6 to go. So there's now, they are fighting like it's the last lap.
That was a pretty crafty piece of driving. I don't think anybody, Newgarden, Rossi, or Kanaan, would have expected that. Watch this.
Here comes Newgarden again. Power stays down low to defend. Newgarden tries to go high, not this time.
So smart though, he's saying, Will Power is saying, if you want to pass me, you're going to have to go to the outside of turn 3, and that is a tricky and treacherous move if you brave it.
And he gapped him too, so if he can force Joseph Newgarden to take him on the outside of 3, when you get this late in the race, you're going to delay your turn in and hang that guy out in the gray.
Now what does Joseph Newgarden do? That was the move he was working on. He has to completely recalibrate and figure out where's it going to come from? How do I get by my teammate?
You think Will Power watched that pass over and over at Mid-Ohio? He knows what the move's going to be.
Left, right, left, right.
Teammates, 1 and 2 for Team Penske. He's won 9 IndyCar races here. Michael Andretti and his team has been the master of the 500-mile races. Alexander Rossi has not won this season in his 2nd season after winning the Indianapolis 500 as a rookie. On board with Newgarden, running in 2nd. That's Rossi right behind him.
Tell you what, Rossi's got to make a move here pretty soon. He can't leave it to the last lap. We've got 4 to go, coming to 3 to go. So Rossi's got to try to get closer and get around Newgarden if he's got a chance.
2 young American superstars running second and third. Newgarden, the championship leader, coming in, chasing his teammate, the former champion, Will Power. Rossi's got a little bit of a run here.
Okay, watch this. Newgarden's reset a bit on his approach. Now Rossi has a little run down the front straightaway. What does Newgarden do to defend?
I think this is all a waiting game to the last lap. I think Newgarden's kind of backed off right now. He knows that he's got to make it happen on the last lap. So I think he might be content to let Power lead right now and just try it on the last lap.
Pagano just got around Kanaan for 4th. Let's see if he can chase down the front 3 and play as well.
You know, I said that you don't want to be leading on the last lap. I'm having some hesitations after watching Power's move here to just take the option away. There he goes again, inside. Back outside.
Last lap, 2:14, 2:14, 2:14 for the top 3 guys. They're all running the same pace, but I like that move by Power. He's making sure that he has the last corner protected.
After no one could keep anyone behind them all race long, this is masterful work by Will Power. All fair. He's not reacting. He is doing it. He's making the first move, so no issue there with what Will Power is doing.
He's definitely
Newgarden again.
He's definitely breaking the draft. Newgarden pulls a tear off. He's got a clean visor, and he's close right now.
He's close, but watch this. Power will do the same thing unless Newgarden can get there first. Power to the inside. He defends over the yellow line. Back up high. Joseph Newgarden must be so frustrated with this very clever defensive move.
Power won here last year. As we come to the white flag, Joseph Newgarden trying to make it 3 wins in a row this season. Alexander Rossi is still there, and Pagano is within range back and forth through turn 1.
Pagano at a 2:16. He's closed that gap. I don't think he's got a shot, but he might get Rossi. But this is going to be the key corner right here as we come to turn 3.
Newgarden is within range. Does he have a run for Will Power? Power comes down low to defend. Rossi thinking about the high side. Newgarden going high, trying to go over under. Can he get it done? Back on the main straightaway. Will Power is going to go back to win at Pocono and get back in the championship mix.
Oh, man.
He said it. What a race. And what a finish for Will Power.
That was masterful defensive driving. He took the line and took every option that Joseph Newgarden had to try to pull anything off and played it to perfection.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
I didn't think anyone could keep someone that was quick behind them. How did Will Power do that?
I'll tell you, for a guy that claims he never watches any of our broadcasts, he sure does watch a lot of film because he studied this one. That was a premeditated move.
Will Power wins for the 32nd time in his career, moving ahead of Paul Tracy and Dario Franchitti. And he wins a great one here at Pocono. Brilliant drive for Will Power to win for the 3rd time this season. And he's in victory lane at Pocono Raceway, winning his 5th career super speedway race, his 6th win on an oval, the 2nd time in a row at Pocono Raceway. Will Power is the man today here at Pocono.